We spent 100 days in Ark Survival Ascended on the island. You see, I've been on a quest to defeat the Alpha Overseer over the past few months, but I've always fallen short from my goal either because of glitches or personal failure. So I've teamed up with another YouTuber to help me finally achieve my goal of killing the Alpha Overseer and ascending off the Ark to whatever lies ahead. Anyway, meet Justify. He has a channel of his own, so make sure to go check out his perspective on this video. Anyway, with our thousands of hours combined into the Ark franchise, together we are Ark Survival Descended. Day 1 started pretty similar to every other 100 days that I've done, even with another person playing with me. I first made my character and then spawned in. The end. Just kidding, we had decided we were gonna spawn in the North 2 spawn zone. That's around where I had built my base in my solo island 100 days. And we picked here to spawn because we wanted to test our skills and rough it out a little bit. There are a ton of explorer notes around here, so we'll actually have to work for our levels and rely on each other to keep progressing. Also, the hidden lake isn't too far of a walk from here, and that's where we both want to build our base, so North 2 was the obvious choice. Anyway, we spent the next minute trying to figure out where each other was, so we could join a tribe together. We obviously want our tames and structures to be shared, so that's where the name Ark Survival Descended came from.
Oh, I see you. I'm right behind you.
And now that we're legally bound in a tribe, it's time to get started. A pickaxe was up to be made first for the both of us, since you literally can't do anything without it. Next, now that we have a pickaxe, do we A, make a spear, B, make a hatchet, C, make a bow, or D, enable admin cheats and kill every boss in the game and end the video right now? Well, if you picked D, you would have been correct if I let my intrusive thoughts win. I used a pickaxe to make a stone hatchet and it was lit. And I then used my new hatchet to begin crafting spears. Since I'm not really able to do a good note run on my character and get a ton of experience, killing dinosaurs is going to be my main way of getting experience. Anyway, while I was midway through getting spears, I noticed a level 50 Pteranodon that was nearby, and I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret here. We're gonna beat it unconscious with clubs in a few minutes. Okay, that was a lot, so let's be civilized for a little bit longer. I realized I was still 90% naked, so I decided to get some cloth armor from picking fiber from nearby bushes. And that's where me and Justify's civility ended, because we decided to knock out that level 50 Pteranodon with clubs. It's brutal, but it must be done.
Yeah. Alright, I'm ready to beat it.
I'm not even gonna let him land.
Come on. Yes!
Oh,
It's level 50, so obviously it's not going to be very good, but a PT is a PT nonetheless. Anyway, now that we have that PT knocked out, we have a more permanent area that we need to stay around to make sure it tames.
I'm gonna go off and try to hunt some dodos or something.
okay. I'm gonna set up like a mortar and pestle.
Yeah, this is a duo 100 days, so we can multitask like that. So you think we'd be able to beat this map in about half the time it would take one of us, right? Well, don't worry, we definitely bob out later. Anyway, I ran back towards the beach to try and find some dodos to kill, or just whatever creature I came across that I would be able to take down with some spears. And I managed to kill one dodo before the Dilo Mafia rolled up on me, but I managed to take them down without any problem whatsoever.
I think I can post up.
Nice, nice.
Oh, the first death.
I was gonna say we just club him.
Anyway, after that, I used my stone tools to farm a few campfires to keep us fed and warm as we did spawn in the northern part of the map. And I ran back over towards where we had knocked the bird out. And by this time, Justify had set up a thatch foundation with a mortar and pestle on it to begin crafting narcotics for future tames. After I got some food cooking, I was tabbed out on my other monitor. I'm not sure what I was doing, I was probably just looking up ways to tell my duo partner that he's a Bob nicely. Anyway, while I was tabbed out, a Dilo began attacking the BT we had knocked out, and in return, we knocked it out.
Dude's unconscious with 8 spears in his back.
And in the short time that Dilo was awake and actively targeting us, he managed to lower our PT's taming effectiveness and destroy 2 of our campfires. So we're gonna tame him and force him to be our pet for the rest of this 100 days as a punishment. The Dilo tamed a few seconds later and we named it Karen. Karen is a male. And it's also around this time that we decided we're gonna bring Karen into the Alpha Ascension boss fight with us. He is the official leader of Ark Survival Descended. And moving towards the end of day 1, not much happened. I made some more bolos as well as some more cloth armor to finish my set as it was getting very cold up here. Anyway, just before the clock struck midnight, I spotted a level 80 Pteranodon that had made the mistake of landing near our camp, and I think you can guess what happened to it soon after.
Well, we could always.
We got it!
Okay. Okay.
Just like that, we got another PT knocked out, and soon to be ours, as long as it isn't killed by any other nuisances. And speaking of nuisances, I was attacked by Pego like 10 seconds later, and I killed him for his crimes against humanity. And immediately after I killed the Pego, a random level 10 Parasaur was just walking by and practically begging me to tame it. This Parasaur right here is gonna be a mighty fine berry farmer for us. It's only level 10, but it doesn't matter since its one purpose is to farm narco berries for me and Justify. Anyway, the Parasaur tamed in a matter of less than 2 minutes because it's a level 10, and well, it's a Parasaur. And the whole time while I was taming this Parasaur, Justify was taming one as well, which he named Perry. And also, if you haven't noticed by now, Justify plays Ark on Steam with a controller. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but there's definitely something wrong with that. Anyway, I named my Parasaur Mamma Mia, and she was gonna help help us conquer this arc along with Karen. And I then marched Mama Mia back to our camp, and I left her there as I went to craft a bow, some bolas, and some arrows. It's not safe out in these parts of the arc because I'm a skinny white boy with no street cred, so I've got to stay strapped. Anyway, after crafting a ton of arrows, I quickly put them to use by killing another random Pteranodon, which I wasn't interested in taming. I wanted its skin. And I also used its flesh to feed the level 80 Pteranodon we had knocked out to tame it. It's hardcore cannibalism, but what it doesn't know won't hurt him. Moving on.
I'm already level 35.
Yeah, so it seemed the plan of us trying to rough it and grind out our levels kind of failed because the XP multiplier was set a little bit too high. It's Justify's fault. Now, we're just kind of waiting around for the PTs to tame so that we can make the journey into the Hidden Lake and set up a more permanent base there. But it's still going to take a while for these guys to tame, and we'll also have to craft saddles for them at some point. So in the meantime, I spent my time wisely by crafting hide armor to keep me warm as it was pretty cold. And I then killed a nearby parasaur and used its skin to make a saddle for my parasaur. Once again, it's morally wrong, but I don't really care. And I then farmed some narco berries, and me and Justify lit up a turtle with stone arrows until it died. We need keratin or chitin for a PT saddle, so it was a justified kill. See what I did there? Yeah, that sucked. Next clip. The next few minutes were pretty uneventful. I spent time farming narco berries, and the first PT we had knocked out actually did tame. But things didn't stay too mellow for too long, as level 135 trike wandered over to our area. And a tame like that could be very beneficial in taking down threats that we might encounter in the Hidden Lake. So me and Justify both loaded up our bows and arrows with trank darts and started spamming it.
Oh, dude, watch out.
Oh, he's about to charge.
Oh,
no. Oh no.
yo, you're getting boxed.
Dude,
Oh my god.
Well, this trike is definitely strong, that's for sure. Anyway, after a few long minutes of scuffling with the trike and it breaking our structures on our thatch foundation,
Oh,
Oh.
we eventually knocked it out. And there was a rogue Carno nearby, so I let it away while Justify finished putting the trike to sleep. And the trike was gonna take a while to tame, so we're gonna have to spend some more time around here.
ugh, 2.6 per. That's,
It's gonna take a minute.
yeah.
After making sure that Trike had more than enough Mayho berries to tame, I went back over towards our base area where Justify had claimed a random baby parasaur that he found. And by found, I mean that he killed his parents and then adopted him, forcefully. Anyway, this was actually really good for us because we realized that our baby maturation rate was way too slow because we'd be done recording this video by the time this baby parasaur became an adult. And the rest of the day was pretty chill. I set up another campfire because our other one had been destroyed by the Trike. And we got more narcotics crafting and killed another turtle for keratin as well as another trike. Also, Justify hit me with an arrow, but he said it was an accident, so I guess I'll let it slide.
I already had it pulled back. I just let it go, you know.
You just lodged it in my right hand.
We're still waiting for this trike to tame on day 3, so we still have a lot more time to kill. I tried running up and down the beach to see if I can find anything to kill for either more hide or more keratin, but I only managed to take down one Dilo before heading back to camp. And the island was also experiencing a heat wave, so I had to take off all my armor or I was gonna bake like a potato. And I was literally freezing at this exact spot just over a day ago. This just goes to show how bipolar the weather is on the island. Anyway, I crafted the trike saddle because they're pretty cheap. And after only a few more minutes, it was tamed. And Justify named her Trike Wazowski, which is an impeccable name if you ask me. Moving on, we're pretty much ready for our invasion of the Hidden Lake where we're gonna set up our new base. There is some pretty thick jungle between us and the lake, however, so we both spent a few minutes gearing up for the journey. Our main threat is a pack of raptors, but as long as we have some bolas and our Trike Wazowski, we should be able to take them down with ease. And just like that, we were off like a herd of turtles because we were not moving fast at all. And I was leading the charge on the Trike to try and take down any dinos that were in our way, while Justify had all the other dinos following him. Also, the level 80 PT had tamed by now, but we didn't have a saddle for either of them yet.
Too late.
Oh, we got
What you
some
got?
trank arrows, some pelt, and then a ascendant fur cap.
Anyway, shortly after opening the drop, we arrived at the Hidden Lake, and luckily we didn't see any immediate threats. Herbivores filled the pit, and there were even some beavers and their dams in the lake. So far so good. But as we went up to the plateau that overlooks the lake where we wanted to set up our base, we spotted a Theri. And a raptor, but there was only one, so I killed it pretty easy with our trike. But the much bigger threat is that Theri. We don't know what level it is, and if it gets aggroed onto our tames and it's a high level, we're definitely done for. So Justify decided to take one for the team and got eliminated by the Theri so we could see what level it was. But don't worry, he had placed a sleeping bag before he sacrificed himself.
I see it though. Ow.
Luckily, it's only a level 55, so we should be able to kill that with our trike. But while I was trying to get organized and get some more thatch foundations, the Theri somehow circled around the lake and began attacking our tames. And we lost some valuable tames, and I even died, but luckily Justify had placed a bed down. Karen survived the attack, however, though, and that's all that really matters. Now, it's great and all that Karen survived the Therizino attack, but we still lost some very valuable tames. We really could have used something like a tank to keep all of our tames safe. Wait, what is that? War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and it's now free to play on PC and console so everybody can fight together. You can take command of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from the years ranging from the 1920s to today's fighter jets and tanks. The immersive details of War Thunder will throw you right into the heat of the battle with show-stopping graphics and eargasm sound effects. And these battles aren't little either. You can join a community of over 70 million players for epic battles and dive into breathtaking experiences that is War Thunder. Now, you obviously can't blow up pesky Therazinos in War Thunder, but you can blow up other battle machines to your heart's desire. And if you're feeling especially spiteful, just imagine that all of your enemies are Therazinosaurs and get revenge for whatever crimes they've committed against you in Ark. So join the fight today and download War Thunder using my link in the description or pinned comment for PC, PlayStation, or Xbox. And if you've played War Thunder before and are looking to pick it back up with this new rage you found for Theres, new and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will receive a massive bonus pack on all platforms. This pack contains the Eagle of Valor vehicle decorator, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium account. And it's only going to be around for a little while longer, so download War Thunder today. But in the end, the lower level PT that we tamed had died, and at least one of the Parasaurs, and I'm pretty sure Mamma Mia also died, but I don't know for certain. I've tried looking back through the footage, but she vanished. She might pop back up, but I'm not really sure. Anyway, I don't want something like this happening again. The hidden lake is pretty secluded and safe, but it's not safe enough. I decided that I'm gonna dedicate myself to putting up 3 different sections of wooden gates to hopefully prevent any other dangerous creatures from getting into our base. So that's what I did for the rest of the day while Justify worked on setting up another camp. We had decided that Justify was going to lead the base design, because if you guys have seen any of my other videos, you would definitely agree that this is a good idea. Anyway, Justify managed to loot a drop with some decent loot, set up a storage box, and a refining forge so we can get some metal tools before the end of the day. I was still on that gate grind for about the first half of day 4. Let me just give you a little bit of taste of what I was doing. Anyway, while I was doing all this, Justify was flying around looting a few good tier drops that were nearby. And there was a red one out in the snow, and it was risky to get, but boy was it worth it. It had a Mastercraft Theres saddle blueprint inside of it. We had already planned to use Theres to fight the dragon, so maybe we'll use them for another boss fight if we can't find anything else too. Anyway, after I was done getting the gates up, I admired the beautiful Mastercraft Theres saddle blueprint that Justify had just managed to get. And Justify had also got some nice other valuable resources from the drop like polymer and electronics, which will be super nice to have in the future. But moving on, after that, I set up another campfire to get some more food cooking back at our new base, while Justify was demolishing some new metal foundations. Anyway, Justify was demolishing the foundations because we were actually extremely poor and needed the metal. And with that metal, he was able to cook up a smithy for us so we could advance into the metal stage. And speaking of advancing, I wanted to get us both spyglasses. Playing Ark without a spyglass is not fun, like, at all. It would have definitely been really nice to have one when we found that Theory near our base. So I took out our PT and flew to a nearby metal mountain and farmed some crystal. And I got just enough for 2 spyglasses before leaving and flying back to base. And I did check out some PT levels that were nearby as well, because we definitely want more than just 1 PT. Anyway, I crafted both spyglasses and gave one to Justify. And he had also crafted me both metal tools and a crossbow by the time I'd gotten back. He's a real one. Anyway, I decided to turn around and put these metal tools to good use right away. I did spot a level 95 PT when I was making my way back from getting crystals, so I took our PT back over to the beach and knocked it out and began taming it with prime meat that I gathered. Having 2 of these things is definitely going to be super beneficial. And anyway, I spent the rest of the day flying around and trying to see if there's anything else I wanted to tame, but I didn't find anything. And Justify was wrapping up the day by starting to farm resources for our base. We're gonna build it out of wood because honestly, screw building out of stone. I was still waiting for the PT to tame in the morning of day 5. We needed some more chitin for another PT saddle because we'll have 2 PTs now, duh. Anyway, I spent some time flying around the nearby mountain until I eventually found a scorpion which I killed with my crossbow, and I got more than enough chitin from it for the saddle. Yeah, maybe our rates are a little bit too high again. Oh well, it's Justify's fault once again. Anyway, I returned back to the PT just before it finished taming and flew back to the base. And once there, I crafted the PT a saddle and first named it Blueberry, but I didn't like that name, so I immediately changed it to Redface because its face is red. And in the time that I was gone, Justify had got some decent work done on the front foundation of the base. We didn't really have any plan of what the base was gonna look like, but our initial idea is to have a part of the base that is on land and another part above the lake where we can land flyers. However, we were both getting a little bored of just straight PvEing and bobbing around, and there just so happens to be 10 caves on this map that we need to explore and retrieve the artifacts from. So we decided it was best to try and get some creatures we can bring into the said caves sooner rather than later. But we didn't have any cryopods or an RG yet, so we won't be able to move any creatures around that easily. So I decided to farm up and craft a raft that we can sail over to the Carno Island or other parts of the map. We're gonna try and find some saber-tooth cats to tame since they're both small and 2 should be able to put out some decent damage. Anyway, after I got the raft crafted, I waited on Justify who was crafting some structures like a smithy and a bed to put on the raft. And then we took off for the coast and set up the raft. And as we were about midway from sailing from the eastern coast to the Carnivore Island,
Oh my god, my game just crashed.
And Justify had crashed so hard that even his OBS had crashed with it. Anyway, he would eventually turn off frame generation, which would mostly solve this problem. And hey, I'm yet to crash, so this is an amazing start for me. Anyway, Justify logged back in and we continued until we arrived at the Carnivore Island. And there was a purple drop waiting for us on the beach of the island, so I took the liberty of getting it. And it gave me a decent hatchet and some cooked mutton. That's about it. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for Sabertooths to raid caves with. So we decided to spend the next few minutes circling the island, but I got a little bit distracted when I spotted.
Ooh, 130 RG on the very back of the island.
We do happen to need an RG, so I think this is the perfect opportunity, as we already have most of the taming gear that we needed. So I led the RG out to sea a little bit, so me and Justify could clear the area to tame it. And after taking down the local pests, I got off my PT and farmed up a simple RG trap. But it didn't go without trouble because I was knocked out by a scorpion midway through farming it, but I eventually completed my task. Justify continued tranking out the bird, while I continued to try and look for another saber cat to tame, but I didn't find any. And I ended the day by bringing a dead RG over to try and heal this RG as it was getting pretty low from being shot, but it eventually knocked out and we started the taming process. The first third of day 6 was pretty tame. Me and Justify had switched jobs. I was now watching the RG and made sure nothing attacked it while it was taming, while Justify was flying around looking for some sabers to tame. We still wanted to do our first cave kind of soonish to get a head start on the tribute gathering process. Anyway, the RG took about 10 minutes into day 6 to tame, which honestly isn't terrible, and I named the oversized pigeon Chick. And with all the killing that I had to do to make sure this small part of the island was safe for the RG to tame, I had a lot of chitin and hide left over. And looking to see what I needed to craft the RG a saddle, I only needed some fiber and a little bit more hide. So I picked a few bushes for the fiber and killed an RG. And that small amount of farming was enough to catapult me into crafting an RG saddle. Justify hadn't had any other success finding a saber on Carno Island. So we both returned to the raft and decided to sail over to a nearby mountain instead to continue our search. Also, I'd just like to add this clip of Justify looking absolutely dripped out in his combination of Riot, chitin, and hide armor all at once. Let me know what you think about this fit in the comments. You see, we wanted 2 of these saber kitties, and we wanted them bad. And now since we have an RG saddle, we're actually able to pick up the sabers if we find any, and that should make the taming process a lot easier and safer. So we began scouring the mountains, but all we found was a level 25 Giga. You know, just the stuff you find every day. I mean, it was only level 25, so there's no point in taming it, but maybe we'll be back in the future to kill it for its heart, as we do need 2 for the Alpha Dragon boss fight. Moving on, me and Justify split off to cover more ground, but literally like 1 minute later I found an Ankylo that we needed to tame.
135 Anki. I think we should take it.
Yeah, we
I
should.
got
We
it.
can go on a legitimate metal run right here.
We're definitely gonna need a good Ankylo to mass farm metal in the future, so this honestly is a great find even if it's not a saber that we've been looking for. Anyway, I scooped up the Anky with my RG and dropped it inside an ancient ruin where it couldn't escape, and Justify shot it with arrows until it fell asleep. And once the Anky was knocked out, I farmed all the Mayho berries that we need to tame it. This thing is gonna take a while to tame, like probably even longer than the trike, and I still wasn't having any luck finding a saber, and neither was Justify. So I decided to spend the rest of the day on the very tip of the mountain farming metal and stone because we'll need it later on. And some random level 45 PT also landed on our raft, so Justify decided to tame it just for fun, I guess. I don't know, we'll probably never use it because it's terrible, but I don't know, he tamed it. I had farmed a few stacks of metal by the morning of day 7, so I flew back down from the mountain to the raft and put it all into a forge with some wood to get it smelting. And there was also a red drop coming down literally 5 feet from our base, so Justify flew over on the PT and looted it. It wasn't as nearly good as the last one, but who doesn't love some free polymer and a peacemaker? After that, I flew back over towards where the Anky was. But instead of just sitting by the Anky, I did a little snooping around the area, and I actually found a level 55 Alpha Carno. Now that should be a pretty easy kill. I have an RG that can fly, and my RG also needs levels, so this seems to be a match made in heaven. So I flew back up to the mountain and grabbed an explorer note that I knew was there, and I returned to kill the Alpha Carno. I began slowly whittling down its health and recruited Justify to help me, but it did not go all to plan, like at all. The Carno was taking forever to kill, and it was also melting the RG's and PT's health. And if you've ever played Ark, you'll know that when a dino has low health, it gains its stamina back very slowly. So that combined with Justify's bird getting hit by Titan drones, it wasn't able to get the stamina and was killed by the Alpha Carno.
Dude, I'm literally out of stamina.
But Justify did manage to escape and get the safety, and the Alpha Carno was still on pretty low health, and I still had some time left on my experience buff. This Carno had to pay for killing our PT.
Dude, it's gotta be low. It is so fight back. I got it! I got 3 seconds left on my thing.
Nice.
Yep, I clutched up just like I always do. Anyway, I put the levels into the RG, picked up Justify from this rock of safety, and flew back towards the raft. And after dropping Justify off at the raft, I began flying back towards the Ankylo as I was getting pretty close to being finished taming. I don't know about you, but after this recording session, I'm gonna go, oh, I just fell off my RG.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that was a classic fat finger play, where I didn't mean to press the dismount button, but I did. And I was gonna say I'm gonna crush some Chipotle after this recording session if you were wondering. Anyway, I spawned back in and Justify used Redface to carry me back over to my body and the RG. How the tables have turned. Anyway, once I got myself put back together, I finally returned to the Anky and sat down with it until it tamed. And I carried it back to the raft, dropped it on it, and then hit the sack. Day 8, and we logged in to see that the server we were playing on had rolled back a little bit since the last time that we had played. So it was still day 7. But I did pretty much the same things as I did on the actual day 7. I deposited the crystal that I farmed back at the raft and flew back over to the Anky who had just now tamed. And I named him Hank the Tank. Little did I know that this name was actually pretty fitting because I would later go on to discover that this guy had 7,000 health. That's actually kind of insane. It looks like every point went into health because its melee is kind of garbage. Anyway, what can you do? I flew the Anky back to the raft, and once there I immediately crafted the Anky a saddle. So I pulled all the resources I could for the saddle, but I was still missing some hides, so I flew back over to a nearby mountain and did some killing, and boom, look. Hank the Tank now has a saddle with his 7,000 health. I seriously cannot get over how much health this guy has. Anyway, I decided to put Hank to work right away. You gotta earn your keep around here. I scooped up the Anky on my RG and flew back up towards the mountain to farm a bunch of metal. And once I had gathered a decent amount of metal, I flew back to the raft and me and Justify sailed home. We decided to pack it in because we weren't finding any good sabers to tame, and we had been out for quite a few days now. And we figured we probably want a better functioning base before we go and start taming everything under the sun. So anyway, I transferred everything from our expedition into the RG, and I also crafted some flak inside of it since its saddle also works as a smithy before finally heading back home. And after getting organized at our camp for a little bit, I decided to use Chick to loot some of the beaver dams because we needed the paste for the future and the wood for our base. But the beavers were not too happy with me. I mean, I get I sold their whole life's work in seconds, but forgiveness is the first step in the healing process. Anyway, I was trying to farm narcotics when I noticed damage numbers on the other side of the lake. Turns out the beavers had rebelled and were actively destroying the wooden gates that I had worked so hard to keep us safe. We were getting raided by beavers. Anyway, we kind of just let them do their thing because gates are easily replaceable, and I went back to crafting narcotics. Remember how I said me and Justify were going to focus building up on our base a little bit before we start taming more dinos? Well, yeah, that was a lie because I completely forgot after I finished crafting narcotics, we set out towards the snow and the middle of the map to look for dire wolves this time. You can't put saddles on dire wolves, but if we have 2 mate boosted with a pack bonus, they might be really strong. So anyway, we spent the rest of the day searching around the snow and the Grand Hills with me on the RG and Justify on a PT. And just before the end of the day, I found a dire wolf worth taming. I had the wolf in my RG's talons in the morning of day 9, and I was transporting it to a safer location to tame it. And Justify, well, I don't know what Justify was doing, but he did eventually make his way over to where I was, and I kept holding the wolf with my RG while Justify shot trank arrows into it. It took a little bit because the way of picking up dinos works in Ark is kind of horrible. Like, half the dino is inside your dino's hitbox, so you have to find just the right angle to be able to shoot it. But after a few minutes, the wolf was knocked unconscious and fell a few feet to the floor, but it'll be fine, I promise. And I already had some prime meat in my RG's inventory to tame the wolf, so I just put that into its inventory and decided to sit with it for it to tame, while Justify was flying around looking for another wolf to tame. But well, while I was still waiting for my wolf to tame later on, I heard Justify say this. You never want to hear that from your friend when you're playing Ark.
Oh, Prolovia.
Yeah, I'm good, but my pterodon is like stunned. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so Justify had managed to get both of our PTs killed. Make sure to flame him in the comments for that. Anyway, I had to go pick him up to save him, and I dropped him back at the wolf who had now tamed, and I named her Shiva. We're gonna conquer these islands' caves together, and maybe Justify can join too if he stops getting our tames killed. Anyway, after dropping Justify off, I flew back over to where Redface had died because there's actually a level 95 Sabertooth over there. It obviously wasn't great, but we had lost too much searching for caving creatures, and we had to wrap this up. So I brought the saber back over with the RG, and we used the same strategy to knock it out. And I then flew back out to get some prime meat to actually tame the saber. And before long, it was tamed, and we began making our way back to the base. I was carrying Shiva, and Justify was running back on the saber with a low-level dire wolf that we had also tamed to try and breed the 2 dire wolves. But it didn't survive the journey home, so I don't even know why I'm mentioning it. And eventually, I made it home just before the end of the day. And I made up a ton of narcotics as we had a ton of spoiled meat left over. And Justify also made it home alive somehow, even though he had to run through literal hell on a saber. Anyway, Anyway, the creature that actually killed our low-level direwolf was a level 140 saber, which honestly, the irony is kind of insane. So we took the Archie back out to go look for it. I spent the early morning of day 10 first healing up Shiva and then killing some nearby dinos in the lake to try and get some more levels under her belt. And after that, I was just doing some general work around the base like narcotic crafting, and I also made some spark powder. And we now only have one good flyer, being the Archie, and Justify was using it to look for the saber. I think that crappy PT Justify tamed a few days ago was still alive, but there's no way I'm going to be using that thing. And also, I'm just now realizing that this is probably the most I've ever been struggling in my recent 100 days. Usually day 10 is where I begin picking up some stride, but we're in the dumps right now. Anyway, Justify returned back to base about 10 minutes later into day 10, but not with the level 140 saber. He couldn't find it. Instead, he came back with a level 70 direwolf, which isn't great, but maybe the pack bonus will be enough to get us through some caves. So I first tried knocking the direwolf out while Justify held it with the Archie, but I wasn't able to get any good shots off, so I ended up just dropping it and we chased it around the lake to later try knocking it out. And when we eventually did knock it out, it fell asleep inside the lake. Bro, it literally drowned and we didn't get to tame it. Moving on, Justify had gotten a pump shotgun from a drop that was slightly better than a primitive one at some point. And of course, I had to yoink it for myself because I love these boomsticks. And I then proceeded to take some shotgun shells from our base and set out with me and Shiva and Justify on a Sabertooth that's really named Neil Armstrong Jr. I honestly don't know why. Anyway, if you couldn't figure it out, we're gonna go do our first cave now. We decided that we wanted to try and defeat the Broodmother boss first, and you need the clever artifact to summon it. The Broodmother's tributes are pretty easy to get, so that's why we decided on this. Anyway, the next 10 minutes were spent running down the river and along the giant river that runs through the middle of the map towards the cave. The cave was on the other side of the metal mountain, and we could either take the long way or the way through literal hell, so we chose the long way. And we also killed some dinos that were blocking our way for levels. And we made it to the cave with about 5 minutes left on day 10, and we ran straight in. And it's very safe to say that we were very underprepared for this cave. Anyway, we began fighting our way through the cave, and it was definitely hard. Getting Mega Rabies was probably the worst part about this cave. There were a million bats that kept dishing it out like candy on Halloween, and I literally had to have Justify kill me twice because my health was so low and I kept accidentally reinfecting myself from my dead body. Day 11 started off great too because I accidentally spawned back where we spawned on day 1 somehow. But don't worry, I quickly eliminated myself by drowning, and once I finally respawned back into the cave, I made even more sleeping bags, and so did Justify because we were probably gonna die a few more times. I really can't understate how unprepared we were for this cave. Anyway, we both mounted our tames again and went into the next section of the cave to clear it, and I literally got Mega Rabies once again. These bats gotta start getting their vaccines. Anyway, I eventually made my way out of the cave and even made a bed because we were both dying so often. And the next section went a little bit like this: force feed, fight, force feed, die, fight. That was an accident, I swear. Anyway, I led a saber back to safety until he respawned, and we finally killed the last few creatures that we needed and got the artifact. And we also aggroed a Megalosaurus on the way out of the cave, so you know we got out of there in like lightning speed. And once we did get out of the cave, we pretty much spent the rest of the day running back home. We're both back at base by the morning of day 12, and we honestly spent way longer in the cave than we expected to. We actually did get dogged on in there. Anyway, we can't really dwell on the past because we have to keep moving forward. And I spotted a yellow drop not too far from our base, but I didn't really get anything great out of it. Anyway, once I got back, I crafted up some more shotgun shells because I had already gone through the whopping 6 that I had brought into the cave. Shotguns are super good, but we're currently in no financial position to actually afford the ammo for them. So anyway, we're gonna settle back for a little while and actually work on the base now. There has been way too much chaos in the last few days. As I said earlier, Justify is gonna be leading the building process, so I'm gonna farm the resources needed and try to add a few structures here and there when I can. After farming all that wood, I crafted a wooden gate to put on the front of the base so we can get some smaller dinos in and out. And now I can say I actually helped build the base. Anyway, a few seconds later, our crappy PT that was in still fact alive died to a Trudon. I mean, neither of us cared at all because it was level 59, but I did go over on my direwolf and kill the Troodon. And that's when I saw a beaver dam hiding in the bushes with a beaver right next to it. So I ran back over and hopped on my RG and peacefully relocated the beaver so I could loot its home in peace, and I did just that. But a few minutes later, the beaver somehow found me. So I once again peacefully relocated the beaver. Because I'm a nice guy, I don't need to kill everything in sight. And I want to keep it producing more dams so I can steal from it, but that's not the point. Anyway, I got back to what I was doing, but just over a minute later, the beaver somehow found its way back to me, and it was even more mad this time as it went straight to chomping down our wooden base. But I once again, out of the kindness of my heart, flew the beaver back to the other side of the lake. This time I made sure it was super far away, and I got back to what I was doing. And I just realized I haven't actually said what I'm doing. I was actually putting together a little throne surrounded by standing torches for Karen because he is the leader of this tribe. And once I got that set up, I whipped up a few storage boxes because our small amount of structures were already overflowing with loot and resources. Anyway, after that, yeah, the beaver somehow managed to find its way back after like 5 minutes of me not seeing it. That thing was out for blood. And I finally said enough is enough and I killed it with my RG. And I spent the rest of the day repairing the base and adding a few more storage boxes. I started day 13 by carrying the Anki out on my RG towards a nearby mountain. Not to farm metal though. As you all know, I am a PvE Bob and I like things to look nice. And probably one of the best looking things in this game are artifact pedestals. And I just so happen to want 10 of them since there are 10 artifacts. I mean, I'll probably never have all 10 artifacts at once, but who knows. Anyway, let me smack these obsidian rocks real quick. Okay, let's go back to base and get these artifact pedestals placed down. And I did also craft them inside the RG since bro is literally a mobile smithy. After I got all the pedestals down, I talked to Justify for a few minutes about how the base was going to end up looking like. I don't really know how to describe it right now, but you guys would just have to see it when it's done. Anyway, I decided to pitch in again and expand the platform that'll go out over the lake where we're going to land our flyers and have our crafting structures. So I took Chick down to the other side of the lake and first farmed fiber, then wood and thatch to craft pillars. And after that, I spent the rest of the day placing and crafting ceilings to fill out the platform. And throughout pretty much the whole day and the whole time while I was doing this, Justify was working on other parts of the base. He made 2 outdoor walkways connecting the ground to the platform and also worked on placing the ceiling and ramp combo type thing to make a roof for us. But there would also be some space on the top that we could use later on. And he also tamed a low-level baby stego earlier in the day and named it Spike Wazowski for some reason. I honestly have no idea why he did it, but it doesn't matter because it would later go on to die from a theory or something. I can't honestly remember what happened to it. Day 14, and turns out the stego died just to starvation. Yeah, that thing didn't last long at all. And I don't know what I was on when I said it died to a theory or something. Anyway, I was just about finished making the platform over the lake for our base. I was using triangle ceilings to try and angle it so it wasn't just a giant square, and I thought it looked pretty good. Except when I brought it all together and was just about to be finished, there wasn't enough support for me able to place the last ceiling. So I had to farm and craft a whole nother set of pillars to be able to place one more ceiling. Arc building really does flip you the bird sometimes. And during all this, Justify was finishing up the ceiling and upper level of the base. And he also added a stone water tap because water was a constant problem for us. The hidden lake is super hot about 75% of the time. Anyway, after I finished the platform, I added some railings so you know we don't fall off. And it's now time to fully move everything into the base and sort out all the items from our little camp. And I thought of a great way to organize our storage boxes. I'm gonna put painting canvases on them and of course paint what's in the box with a little picture on it. And the actual canvases were pretty cheap, so I crafted a few and placed all those. And I then crafted a cooking pot and made some black dye to draw with. And yeah, me and Justify got carried away. We spent the rest of the day painting on the canvases. And let me show you just a few of the things we came up with. First up, we have the 3 resource storage boxes. And they were appropriately labeled with pictures being rocks, and even more rocks. And then we have my personal favorite, tributes, with of course, gigaballs. It's a real piece of art. And the last one I'll show you will be the structures box with this awesome looking house on it. You can tell we really have our priorities straight. Day 15, we both logged back into the server just to discover that the same glitch had happened back on day 8. The server rolled back about 10 minutes of real time, so all of our amazing paintings were gone. And that simply didn't sit well with me, so I organized a raid on Nitrado headquarters. Just kidding, me and Justify spent the rest of day 7 repainting our paintings. And don't worry, I put the gigaballs right back to where they were. Those aren't going anywhere. Anyway, now that our glorious paintings are back in their place, it's time to actually organize our storage boxes. So we spent the next few minutes doing just that. And I also crafted a preserving bin to store our spoilables until we get a fridge later on. And I crafted crafted 3 more refining forges so we'll be able to speed up our metal production. It feels like we're finally getting somewhere. And we still had a bunch of raw metal left over from when I did that small metal run a few days back when me and Justify were both out by the mountain. So I quickly farmed up some more wood and got the rest of that smelting along with cooking some more food and campfires. And I then set up a small crafting station only consisting of a smithy and mortar and pestle right now, but it'll get bigger, I promise. That's what she said. Next clip. Sorry. Moving on, I spotted a yellow drop with a ring coming down only a few seconds flight north. So I took out our only flyer and looted it for some mammoth saddles and gasoline. Yeah, the gas was only the really good part of that. If you're an ARC Pro, you've probably noticed the stone structures that are in my inventory. And you'll probably recognize that they're exact same structures that I need to tame a Giga. Just kidding, it's an RG trap. We're gonna tame an RG. As I said a few seconds ago, Chick is our only flyer, and that doesn't really work because there's 2 of us. So we decided to fly back over to Locarno Island to tame another RG, and we'll get some more PTs later on. And there were actually a ton of RGs on the island, and there just so happened to be a level 125 among them. And that level meets our standards, so Justify set me down while I could set up the trap while he made sure the area was safe. And I actually sniped the RG out of the sky and got into the trap all by myself. I'm basically him. And I spent the rest of the day just standing there waiting for the RG to tame because I couldn't do much while Justify was using the other RG. The RG tamed a few minutes into day 16, and about 60% of its feathers were orange, so of course I named it Cheeto. And I had already made the second saddle on day 15 before we left, so I was able to mount Cheeto right away and take off. But before heading back to base, we flew back over to the nearby mountain once again because Justify had spotted an Alpha Raptor, and we both basically smothered it to death with our RGs. And I got a ton of experience on the RG for easy levels as well as a decent crossbow to tame stuff with. And then we actually did fly back to base, but we weren't gonna stay here for too long. I think I said it earlier, but I'm not totally sure since the script is already over 9,000 words, but we want to take down the brood mother first. And we're planning to use Megatheriums to take down the oversized spider and her minions, since the giant sloths are basically engineered to kill her. Anyway, I crafted up a bunch more stone structures and a few wooden ramps, and we both flew out towards the snow to find us a giant sloth to tame. It'd be nice to find 2 high levels, but we can just tame 1 and then breed the good stats out with a bad level if it comes to it. And the next few minutes were pretty uneventful. We were both just scouting the snow, and I looted a blue drop and got a decent Enki saddle. Then all of a sudden, Justify gets Perlovia'd and dies. I tried to make my way over as fast as I could, but I wasn't able to save his RG either. Justify has really got to stay out of the snow. He's basically a magnet for Perlovias. Anyway, Justify respawned at the bed that we had put into the Clever Cave and ran back over towards where he died and waited for me. And once I got over to him, I escorted him to his loot, which he then deposited into Cheeto and died once again to respawn back at base. And as you can probably guess, I flew back to the base so he could get his loot. And I then crafted up a bunch of tranks because we only have 1 flyer once again. This Justify dude really has to stop getting our flyers killed. Anyway, I had spotted a level 95 RG on the way back to base, and obviously that's not great, but Justify doesn't get a good pick if he keeps losing our tames like this. I left Justify on a nearby plateau to set up a trap while I flew back over to find and lead the RG back. And it did take me a few minutes to find the RG, but it took Justify even longer to actually trap it. He wasn't able to get the snap points to actually place the walls for his life. And to be fair, I was watching about 15 feet away with plenty of walls straight chilling in my hotbar, but he needs to get better at this if he's gonna keep losing our flyers. Anyway, Justify eventually trapped the extremely mid RG, and I killed a nearby Diplo to get the prime meat to tame it. And after that, I left Justify on his own and began searching for a good Megatherium once again since he had the RG in a safe area. And anyway, I spent literally the rest of the day flying all around the snow looking for a good Megatherium to tame. I wasn't having any problem actually finding Megatheriums, but they were all horrible levels. I saw an ungodly amount of level 5s and 10s, and I even found an Ovis before I found a Megatherium.
No way I found a whole Ovis before I found a good.
And don't worry, I was making sure to kill all the bad levels so the new ones would respawn, but I was having no luck, and neither was Justify. His RG eventually tamed, and he once again began scouting the snow. But there was a whole lot of nothing, so towards the end of the day, he began flying out towards the Redwoods. We really do want to get a good boss army as soon as possible because we don't want to cram all 3 bosses into the last 25 days or whatever. Day 18, I spent literally the whole day searching for a singular good Megatherium. And once again, the Megatheriums are everywhere, but there aren't any good ones. And once again, I have no idea how many low levels I actually killed. And after so long, the memories of just flying around the snow and spyglassing Megatheriums began to blur together, and half of my mental capacity is now gone. Now, you have to be saying, well, how is Justify doing? Terrible. He scouted the whole Redwoods and found nothing as well. And after scouting the Redwoods, he returned to the snow to keep scouting once again, but nothing. The highlight of both of our days was Justify opening a yellow and red drop earlier on in the day, with both had some pretty good loot in them. Day 19, and we've basically given up. We've searched the snow multiple multiple times now. I've basically been doing figure eights around it for the past hour now. Anyway, me and Justify have decided to give ourselves a break of sorts. We're gonna try and retrieve the artifact of the hunter from the southern cave. So I returned back to base and dropped off a few things I had gotten from a supply drop while I was searching. I didn't get anything good, but I then picked up Shiva with my RG and began the long flight southwards. And Justify had gone back to base late on day 18, and he was already headed that way with his Sabertooth. Anyway, I finally made it out to the cave about a third of the way through the day, and Justify was waiting for me. And we ran straight into the cave, decimating all the small spiders and Titanobos that tried to stand in our way. And we got the artifact. And we did actually grab 2 of the artifacts since I wanted to have one for the boss and one for the display in our base. But we'll probably only grab one in some of the harder caves because we can't be that lax with our time in there. Anyway, before leaving the cave, we actually both tame a dung beetle with some of our poop. These little guys are going to produce fertilizer that we need to grow crops with, whether they like it or not. I don't know. They probably do like it because they're poop beetles. And we didn't really plan on taming these guys either. They were kind of just there when we were in the cave. Anyway, we exited the cave and began flying back towards our base. And I also had a ton of chitin that I kept as we might need it in the future. And we both arrived back home just before the end of the day. And I didn't do much besides depositing all the resources and looting a mid-red drop on Carno Island. Day 20, I flew back across the channel of water towards the main part of the island. I decided to finally bite the bullet and try to tame me and Justify some more PTs. These RGs are good and all, but they're super slow and we don't have any time to waste like that, because we're already on day 20. Anyway, I began flying down the northeastern river, and I eventually turned onto the river right above the redwoods because a bunch of PTs spawn along it. And it didn't take me too long to find a level 135 just straight chilling, and it may have taken more than one bolo to actually get it stuck to the ground.
Bruh.
But when I did stick the bolo, the PT was quickly put to sleep. And right after I knocked out the PT, I was attacked by some rogue Trudons, which reminded me that I was taming this thing in the redwoods. So I quickly farmed up some wooden spikes and placed them around the bird to protect it. I'm gonna be pretty sad if this thing dies. And I already had some prime meat as well for it, so I gave it to the bird and decided to just sit with it to secure the tame before going to look for another. And I did exactly that. And while all this was going on, Justify was making some crop plots back at base so we can get some veggie cakes and stuff for the future. And the bird tamed a few minutes later, and I had whistled it to follow me as I kept moving down the river looking for another one to tame. Hopefully a male so that we'll have a breeding pair. And it turns out this river is actually a cheat code for finding high level PTs because I found a level 145 legit 2 minutes later. It was a female, but I'll still take a 145 any day of the week. So anyway, I landed and waited for it to do the same. And I'd picked up the spike walls from my previous PT tame, so this process was exactly the same as last time. And instead of waiting for this one to tame, I went straight back to looking for another one to tame. But the odds of me finding another high level PT and it being a male is very low. So I decided to do this level 15 PT a favor and force him to join our army.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so I may have accidentally left the PT that I already tamed on neutral, and it decided to take a bite out of the level 15 after I boloed it. Oh well, there are a ton of other crappy birds around here. And that statement was quickly proven true because I knocked out and tamed the level 10 in the span of 2 minutes. And I flew back to do a flyby pickup of the level 145, which had also tamed just before the end of the day. But Justify hadn't just been sitting around for the rest of the day after placing the crops down. Since we weren't having any luck whatsoever getting a good Megatherium, we decided that we can maybe use Spinos in the Broodmother. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody actually using Spinos to fight it, but I'm 99% sure there is water in the arena which they get a buff from. It's a really pie in the sky idea, but it could be super cool if it works. But I'd still really like to find a good Megatherium for a guaranteed dub. So anyway, instead of flying around the map, Justify decided to die over and over again and spawn in different locations to check the rivers. It was brutal, but it was efficient. It took me a little while, but I finally made my way back to base on day 21. I really dislike how slow these RGs are sometimes. Anyway, as soon as I got back, I despawned IRL because there's a 2-minute period where I don't move an inch. Just kidding, I was just taking a leak. And once I was actually back at my PC, I organized the items I had gotten from my adventure into the storage boxes. And while I was performing a normal bodily function, Justify had bred our PTs. And he had also seeded and fertilized a new crop plots since the dung beetles that we got from the Hunter Cave were now producing fertilizer. And once again, both of the good levels are breeding with an absolutely terrible male, so we'll probably have to breed them quite a few times to get a baby with all the good stats. And anyway, we both hatched an egg, and the babies were all terrible, so I held true to my branding and I killed mine. But Justify had actually hatched triplets, but they were all terrible, so they would later go on to be killed in a few days. Moving on, I'm just now realizing that it's day 21 and we don't have a fabricator. We're really bobbing out, I know. You don't have to tell me. Anyway, we already had all the resources at base to craft it, so I created it and then placed it right next to our smithy after moving our Anki. And I firstly crafted us both 2 canteens. The hidden lake is super hot most of the time, as I said earlier, so it'll be nice to have some water wherever we are. And I then combined some charcoal with spark powder to eventually craft more shotgun bullets close because 5 isn't gonna cut it, especially since my boomstick is primitive. It ain't putting out big damage numbers like that. And I also crafted a holoscope for my freedom dispenser simply because I like having one. And now that my shoddy is fully kitted out with all the new drip, I decided to put it to use by taking down 2 Argies in the snow. We need 10 talons for the Broodmother boss fight, so it was a good excuse to exercise my rights. Anyway, that's all I did. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk about boomsticks. Anyway, Justify spent most of the day doing small things around the base, but he did set out towards the end of the day to scout the island's rivers for more Spinos to tame. Seriously, we're not having any luck with these Megatheriums, so we'll take anything we can get. Day 22 started with me grinding narcotics, and you're probably wondering what I'm crafting narcotics for. Well, I actually spotted a level 130 Theory back on day 21. I didn't say anything because I totally forgot that I actually saw it, so I'm just bringing it up now. Anyway, as you all probably know, Theories take a lot of narcotics to tame, hence why I spent the first half of day 22 crafting over 200 narcotics, so that Tickle Chicken will stay asleep while we actually tame it. And we already had a trap crafted up because we were going to use the same trap as we were going to use for a Megatherium if we had actually found one. And yeah, I know we were planning to fight the Broodmother first, but we do need Theories for the Dragon boss fight, and we might be able to even use them for the Megapithecus boss fight because it's so weak. What I'm trying to say is we can't pass up on this opportunity, and we need to tame this Theory, even if it does mean that we have to fight the Megapithecus first rather than the Broodmother, even though we already have 2 of the 3 artifacts for it. So after I got everything crafted, me and Justify began flying out towards the Theory location by the redwoods on our high level PTs that I tamed, and they didn't have too many levels put into them yet, so that's why we jumped at the chance to actually get some when we spotted an Alpha Raptor not too far from our base. So we both first grabbed an Explorer Note for that sweet double experience boost, and then spent way too long killing the Alpha Raptor. It's just kind of hitting me now how weak actually our dinos are that I'm not playing with single player settings anymore. The stats boost single player settings gives is actually kind of crazy. Anyway, the Raptor gave us both some decent levels, and I pumped up Flappentina's stats to over 750 stamina and 330 weight. And yes, I did just name her Flappentina. Anyway, we continued our flight out towards a Theory and arrived at its location just before the end of the day, and we began clearing the site to make sure it was safe. I know we didn't actually do much on day 22, but that's because day 22 was actually shortened. If you can remember, our server would keep having rollbacks for about 8 minutes every time we close and launch the server. So to try and counteract this, we tried to let the server run a little bit longer than shut it down on day 21, so it'd start perfectly on day 22. But not even the slightest rollback happened this time. The server just has a mind of its own, I don't know. Day 23, I constructed the best Theory trap that you've ever seen. Just kidding, it's just a normal trap, but it should just work just fine. And Justify decided to take one for the team and take a few hits, but he did manage to get the Theory in the trap with relative ease. And I placed even more walls on the ramp side so that there's no way this gal is getting out. And we've discovered that since Dino AIs did get smarter in Ark Survival Ascended, you have to let the dino that you're trying to trap actually hit you as it's walking into the trap, or else it's just gonna actually walk around the trap. Anyway, I now have to knock out this Theory. Now, I actually can't do too much while I wait for this Theory to tame. I'm gonna have to keep coming back and feeding her narcotics every so often to make sure that she stays asleep. So for the first few minutes after putting the Tickle Chicken to sleep, I kinda just stood there having a very intellectual talk with Justify about if birds are real or not. But after that, I decided to pump the Theory full of narcotics and go start scouting the snow again to hopefully find a good Megatherium. And I'll give you a little hint on how it went. I didn't find one. So that was another 20 minutes wasted. I flew another whole lap around the snow with nothing to show for it. I mean, I guess I can't do that much anyway right now. Anyway, I just returned back to the Theory before the end of the day to feed it more narcotics, and I kind of just sat with it. And Justify spent pretty much the whole day searching the island's rivers once again for a singular good Spino to tame. And yeah, he didn't find any either. Day 24 was a little odd because it started with me trapping and knocking out a level 10 male Theory. And we trapped it in the same trap as the level 130 since they aren't able to damage each other. I decided to tame this guy simply because the odds of us finding another high level Theory and it being a male are pretty low. So anyway, now that I have 2 Theories knocked out and they're both taming with Mayho berries, which is likely the slowest possible way to do it, I can't really leave. They were both shredding through their torpidity and the narcotics that I had, so I had to stick around. And I even crafted another mortar and pestle, which I crafted a few more narcotics with as well to keep these guys asleep. I don't think I needed too many of them, but I did it just to be safe. Anyway, the level 10 tamed first, and obviously it was terrible, but we'll definitely be able to breed the good stats out. And the level 130 tamed just before the end of the day. Now, obviously, we don't want to walk these 2 back to our base. That would take forever and it would be pretty dangerous. So Justify decided to get the resources from our base and craft up 4 cryopods in a blue drop and bring them out to me. But besides that, we both hadn't done too much on day 24. Justify had continued the search for either a good Spino or a Megatherium, but I think you all know by now he didn't find any. But that's alright because we now have these Theories, so at least we'll be able to start progressing towards some of the bosses. I made the long flight back to our base in the morning of day 25 with both of our new Theories in their cryopods. And basically, as soon as I arrived back from the base, I put down the bad PT triplets. It was very satisfying. And after that, I gave Justify one of the Theories in the cryopods, and we both both threw them out so we could start them breeding. We're probably gonna need to do that a lot since we're breeding a level 194 with a level 14. And we're actually gonna need some air conditioners to actually hatch the eggs. And we need a generator to power all that, so I finally crafted up one of those bad boys to power our base. And oh, we also have an industrial grill. Justify had gotten it out of a drop, I don't know when, but he did. Anyway, I put the generator down and it's now powering our base. And we are also cooking up some polymer and 2 air conditioners in our fabricator. We're basically balling out right now. But after that, I moved some of the fertilizer that our dung beetles had produced into the crop plots, and I hatched and killed some babies. Our base was actually hot enough to hatch some of them without the air conditioners, but it won't always be like that. And during all this, Justify was making a little box under our platform where the air conditioners would actually sit. And after he got them placed down, we hatched a ton of RG eggs. We had been passively collecting a ton over the past few days. Anyway, after getting trapped in the little box together where the air conditioners were,
Can you like stack the ACs on top of each other?
That's what I was about to do. Oh no, you can't.
No.
Here, hold on. Let me just
Yeah, make the grand escape.
we hatched the RGs. And most of them sucked, so we only kept 2 to raise. And we also hatched some Theries, and they were good, and one was even good enough to be our female breeder. And after farming a bunch of berries to put into the trough to feed our new dinos, I farmed up a bunch of wood and got it burning in the forges. And then I mounted the Enki and Justify got on Cheeto, and we farmed a ton of spark powder. And if you couldn't tell, we're actually on the gunpowder grind. We need more shotgun shells because it's our main way to defend ourselves when we're not on our tames. It's life or death out here, bro. We finished up farming flint and stone on the morning of day 26, and we were able to craft quite a decent amount of spark powder. But it's still gonna be a little while until all the charcoal is smelted and we can turn it all into gunpowder. And speaking of that wood that I have burning in the charcoal, it's kind of pointless just to have it burning in the forges alone. So we might as well smelt some metal along with it and kill 2 pegos with 1 stone. So me and Justify switched, and I was on the RG this time, and we flew out towards the metal mountain. And we depleted all the metal on the mountain that it had to offer. And as I was flying back, I noticed a red drop was coming down just a few seconds flight from our base, so I dropped Justify off and went to get it. But all it really had to offer were some right pants and a metal elevator platform. But believe it or not, these are actually gonna come in clutch later on. So after depositing those items, I killed the crappy PT that I tamed as we no longer needed it. And I then filled the forges with metal that we had gathered. And after that, I decided it's about time that we craft a fridge. Our base is getting a whole industrial makeover right now, and I'm all here for it. And we had all the resources that we needed, and all I had to do was craft a few electronics and boom, refrigerator. And now that we're shifting our focus towards the Megapithecus, we actually need to get the artifacts and tributes for it. So we've decided to pause the PvE grind and go and try and retrieve the artifact of the Devourer from the nearby cave on Carno Island. There are usually a ton of bats in that cave, however, and those were our biggest threats when we were actually getting the artifact of the Clever. And we also don't have any shotgun bullets right now, and it's gonna be a while for us to actually craft any. So we've decided to bring our good Theory that we tamed in and some fabricated pistols. Fabricated pistols aren't good, like, at all, but we have a ton of fabricated ammo since basically every drop that you open in ASA has at least 30 bullets. So anyway, we suited up. It was decided that Justify would ride the Theory and I would ride my Direwolf with Shiva with a shotgun and fabricated pistol. I really hope it doesn't come to us actually needing the fabricated pistol. Anyway, once we were ready, we set out for the cave just before the end of the day. We made it into the cave in the very early morning of day 27, and the cave has a path that kind of spirals down toward the bottom where the artifact is. So we begin making our way down the ramp. Normally I run this cave with a Thyla and kind of just jump down and I climb the walls back up. But that's not gonna work this time, so we have to do it the way it was intended. Major bump. But everything was going smoothly, and you know what? It was actually going better than smoothly. Mostly because we got a yellow cave drop with actually some really good loot in it.
Oh, 10 shotgun shells, Ascendant crossbow blueprint with almost 400 damage.
What?
It's
Bro, that's the highest damage I've ever seen.
But things went less
All
well
right.
immediately after
Mega
because we
rabies.
got Mega
No!
Rabies. And it didn't really stop us, but Justify got it a few times back to back, so I had to put him out of his misery so he could respawn with full health.
You prefer a pump or a pistol?
I used the pistol.
Anyway, we both continued through the cave without much trouble, and we both went full Doomslayer mode at the bottom where we had to fight a whole army of cave creatures, but I got the artifact, don't you worry. And the climb back up out of the cave was super easy because we had cleared everything out on the way down, and we may have also had to spray the bats with some bullets just as we were about to leave. I can't lie, bats are probably the biggest threat and problem we faced so far. So we swam back to the entrance of the cave, mounted our birds, and flew back home to put our new artifact on display. And by the time we returned, a bunch of the wood had burned into charcoal, so I was able to craft a decent amount of gunpowder. But more importantly, I farmed the fiber and wood that we needed to craft the Ascendant crossbow. Having 388% damage is honestly kinda crazy. And now that I have this shiny brand new crossbow, I'm once again motivated to look for a good Megatherium. So I once again gathered up everything I needed to tame one, and set back out towards the snow for the rest of the day. But Justify wasn't just sitting around while I was out looking for a good giant sloth. He had found a high level baryonyx a few days back. We also do need to venture into the easy underwater cave soon, as we need to get the artifact in there to summon the Alpha Megapithecus. So some of these berry boys will do just fine when we have to go down there. So anyway, Justify spent the rest of the day actually taming it. Day 28, and my motivation to find a good Megatherium quickly faded. I swear it has to be impossible to actually find one of these things. And that lack of motivation led me to being distracted by a red drop coming down. And that red drop actually must have been a beacon of some sorts, because there's actually a level 120 male Theri literally right next to it. I have no idea what's going on. I never have near this much luck with finding good Theri. But I've also never had a problem finding good Megatheriums. Anyway, I was debating on actually taming this guy since we already have a decent Theri, but looking at its stats now, it's just alright. We could definitely use a better melee stat. So I decided to return to the base and gather everything I would need to tame it. And it wasn't much, because considering with this new crossbow, it's only going to take about 14 arrows to knock out, so I didn't even bring a trap. Anyway, when the Theri finally fell asleep, it was like halfway inside a hill, but that doesn't matter. And I am just gonna have to kind of sit with this guy all day since they wake up so fast. And that's pretty much what I did for just the rest of the day. But Justify was cooking up something more entertaining than me at this time. He had managed to trap 2 berries in the same trap in the very early morning of day 28. The one being level 120 and one being level 10. But they were a breeding pair, so we could just once again breed out the good stats and be chilling. So anyway, he knocked those guys out in the swamp and then flew back over towards the redwood to kill some saber-tooth salmon to get some prime fish meat since they only tame on fish meat. And berries tame shockingly fast, so he was back at the base with them well before the end of the day. And once there, he threw them both out of their cryopods and looted a yellow drop and got some organic polymer. And then he started breeding the two. But the first baby that was actually hatched just before the end of the day was terrible, so it was quickly put down with lethal force. Day 29, I logged in and my PT was under attack by a scorpion. It was fine, but it was a little bit too close to the Theri for comfort. I would have been really mad if I logged in and it was going to town, lowering the Theri's taming effectiveness. Anyway, I sat with the Theri for a little bit, kind of just deciding what to do. I still can't commit to a big task because I have to keep feeding this guy narcotics so he'll actually tame. So I spent the day kind of just scouring the islands and rivers looking for a decent Spino to tame since I still had no luck finding any Megatheriums. But yeah, I didn't find any good Spinos either. So I just returned back to the Theri towards the end of the day. And Justify had a pretty relaxed day as well. He spent the time working to get good stats to breed out on the Baryonyxes. But he did manage to get 2 males by the end of the day with good stats. So I think we do have a breeding pair now. Day 30 was pretty lame, I can't lie to you guys. It took over half the day for the Theri to finally finish taming. But when it did finish, it didn't even have any good stats. The female that we tamed a few days ago was much better than this. So basically, this was a big waste of time and I kind of want to die right now. Anyway, complaining gets me nowhere, so I put the Theri back into a cryo and headed home. And Justify had been pretty much just grinding the berries. We were feeding them by killing fish in the lake since the babies only eat fish meat. Anyway, once I got back to base, I deposited a bunch of stuff from my inventory and then hatched a bunch of berry eggs that Justify had saved for me. I think there was like 5, but it doesn't even matter since all of them hatched with bad stats. And there was one that even hatched as triplets with a mutation and they were all bright green, but their stats weren't worth keeping, so they were all executed along with the others. Day 31, I crafted up a ton more gunpowder since our forges had been burning for a little while and actually accumulated a lot of charcoal. And I hatched another berry egg immediately after, which luckily turned out to have all the good stats, and I named them Long John Silver. Please don't sue me. We brought a lot more baby dinos into the world in the next few minutes that followed as well, being some Theris and berries. I'm pretty sure we had a good Theri breeding pair by now as well. I'm not actually sure though, it's all kind of starting to blur together. But yeah, Justify had been going crazy with getting all the dinos that we needed. But I wasn't about that life, and I also wanted an industrial forge since these small forges aren't cutting it anymore. So I decided to take an RG and Anki out to the Metal Mountain and do a solo metal run while Justify stayed back at base and continued breeding the dinos. And I spent like 15 minutes farming on the Metal Mountain and getting all the metal that I could. Just look at all that shiny raw metal. Too bad it's gonna take forever to smelt. Anyway, when I got back, Justify helped me unload all the metal as the day came to an end. And I don't think I've said this yet, but Justify actually managed to get a melee mutation on one of the baby Theris, and it came out pink. So at least our Theri army will look cool even if they're weak. So I'm sure the dragon will take it easy on us if our Theris are absolutely dripped out. Day 32 started with me unloading 780 crystal that I farmed on the metal run. And yes, I'm just just now realizing that I left that out on day 31. Tell me a break, okay? I don't have an excuse this time, I just want a break. Anyway, after that, I raided the local beaver dams that were just below our base. They should know that this water hole is my water hole, and it's my water hole only. Well, I guess it justifies too, but that doesn't sound as cool. Anyway, I got a few hundred more cementing paste that I'll use to craft an industrial forge later on. But for now, me and Justify want to retrieve the artifact of the brute from the easy underwater cave. Long John Silver was now fully raised, and Justify had also raised a berry, so we were pretty much ready to rock and roll after we got some scuba gear. So we began our flight thinking our berries will easily be able to get us in and out of this cave with no problem. And I also looted a red drop on the flight out there, which gave me some electronics, a ton of hard polymer, and a decent Mastercraft UD saddle. But just an FYI between you and me, I'll never actually use this saddle, mostly because I lost it. It kind of fell off the face of the earth, okay? Or the arc, whatever you want to call it. We'll just leave it at that. Anyway, we arrived on the west coast about 5 minutes after that, but it then took us like another 10 minutes to actually get into the cave because neither of us could actually remember where it was. And we also killed 2 bassies for their blubber and the large amount of oil that they give. But we're here for the artifact, so we need to use our combined 3 brain cells and lock in right now. So we finally began swimming into the cave, and there was a singular jellyfish near the entrance. So I went to kill it because I didn't want it to cause a problem later. But as I went to do that, literally everything and its mom decided to try and kill me. There were eels and sharks everywhere, and we both barely made it out alive. But luckily, berries can go on land, so we can escape the hell that is underwater. And after regrouping and healing up some, we decided to keep on going. We plunged back into the water towards the main artifact chamber.
Servers definitely have less creatures. Okay, I'm getting assaulted by eels right now. My health is getting pretty low. You get out good, yeah, but it's kind of. Alright, I got help. Yeah, mine's
Oh,
like
I might be dead.
super low.
I'm dead.
Oh no.
Come on, I'm stuck in an eel, man.
Oh, are you good?
No.
Oh, I
Dang
should
it,
not
dude.
have teamed to try to help. I definitely should not have teamed to try to help.
Yeah, so that didn't go to plan like at all. And to top it all off, Justify's berry died as well, but he somehow survived. Anyway, I respawned back at base because that's the only place I could respawn. I decided I would go back down there with one of our spare berries so we could at least try and get the artifact and maybe even get my stuff. But there was an ungodly amount of eels in there. And I spent the rest of the day crafting another cryopod for the baryonyx and more scuba so we could actually breathe down there. I was making the final preparations to head back out to the water cave in the morning of day 33. And I even had to make another PT saddle so I could fly one of our terrible birds out there. But there was a red drop coming down literally right next to our base, so I decided to wait for it. And luckily I did because I got a whole indie forge out of it for free.
Oh my god. Fabricator and an industrial forge.
And not gonna lie, I was pretty mad that I did die in the cave, but now, not so much. I definitely would have not gotten that forge if I hadn't have died. Anyway, I can set that up later. Justify is still waiting for me at the bottom of the ocean in this cave right now. So I once again flew the long flight out there, deployed the berry, and swam back into the cave. And once in there, I did give Justify the berry, but I couldn't do too much after that. He had to try and pick off a few eels at a time, but usually you get the whole pack as soon as one sees you, so it wasn't going well at all. And after about 10 minutes of virtually no progress, I decided to go for something very risky. I had given up on trying to get my stuff back, which really sucked because I had a good crossbow and my PT and a cryopod in my inventory, but we need that artifact. I never want to come back down here, and neither does Justify. So I decided to respawn back at base to craft some more scuba, grappling hooks, get a strap, and take some stews from our fridge. I'm basically gonna try and make a mad dash for the artifact while Justify distracts everything that he can. I should be able to swim right into the big room and just survive long enough to grapple to the ceiling where hopefully nothing can get me. And hopefully this does go to plan because we basically blown all of our resources on this mission now. But you won't see anything of that today because I now have to fly the whole way across the map on an RG, which really sucks. Oh, and Justify was still trying to pick off all that he could in the cave the whole time while I was doing this, but it still wasn't going well. I finally made it back out to the west coast once again in the morning of day 34, and the RG was so slow that I nearly froze to death. So I had to wait a little bit before diving into the ocean so I could actually feel safe enough to make it into the cave. But after about 5 minutes, I finally felt confident to dive into the cave. And now, my viewers, I present to you the heist.
Oh no, I hear a bat. I have a fabricated pistol, but like,
Did you take my shotgun? Oh, you did.
no. I'm putting. Okay, I killed an Iranian. Alright, I made it past them. Dude, the spiders are swimming towards me. Okay, I should be able to put them down. I got it.
Nice.
I'm grappling out.
If you ever doubted me during any of this, comment your sincere apology down below right now. Anyway, I gave the artifact and my gear to Justify so he could return to the surface with the baryonyx and fly home. And I took the easier way home, however, dying and respawning. And I didn't really do too much for the rest of the day, I kinda just stood around waiting for Justify to get back. We've had a very eventful past few days, so I think I've earned this. I started day 35 by first crafting armor as I no longer had any, because, you know, I died in a cave. But a few minutes later, Justify finally arrived back to base. It took him so long because he had to fly the RG back. But we set up the Indie Forge right after that, and transferred everything that was in our old small forges into it to continue smelting. And after that, I crafted myself another boomstick with a bunch more bullets for it. I just have to have one of these bad boys in my inventory at all times because I'm an American. And I can't lie to you guys once again, I didn't really do anything for the rest of day 35 besides getting my kit back together. But Justify did start breeding more Theries. And now that we have 2 out of the 3 artifacts that we need for the Alpha Megapithecus boss, we probably do need to get an army going sooner rather than later. The start of day 36 was pretty slow as well. I crafted a few more things for my kit like parachutes, and I may or may not have already crafted another one of those amazing crossbows. Come on, I just gotta have it. But I'm actually gonna put it to good use because I'm gonna go and try and tame us a UD for our boss fighting army. Oh, and also I claimed a random baby Thery for the army, but that's not important. Anyway, I farmed a few more ramps that I needed for the trap and set out to look for a UD. But literally less than 2 minutes later, I found a level 115 which will do just fine. It doesn't need to be super high level, it just needs to have a little bit of health and some stamina, so I got to work. First clearing the area of any unwanted dinos, then assembling the trap. And the next few minutes were spent trying to actually get the UD into the trap because they're actually buttholes when it comes to that. But I did it and then started to try and trank it out. I say try because there is an Alpha Carno in the area that was scaring me, so it took me a while to actually do it. But I eventually did get it to go to sleep, and I fed it the prime meat from its Carno minions that I killed. And while that started to tame, I returned back to the base to make more boomstick ammo. And I also claimed another berry which I named Bat Eater 3000. Hopefully this guy doesn't get got like Long John Silver. And Justify spent the entirety of the day going to town and basically raising our whole Thery boss army. I really have to give him credit for this because there's no way I wanted to do this. And he really came in clutch and did it, so he's a real one. I started day 37 off by looting another beaver dam. And I made sure to relocate the homeowner far, far away so he shouldn't be able to raid our base again. And I then proceeded to name the one Thery that I randomly claimed. Yeah, don't question it. Moving on, I opened the blue drop that was right next to our base, and it just so happened to have a flare gun. Anyway, it's time to stop messing around. Justify had moved our baby Thery army outside, and they were still shredding through the berries in our feeding troughs. So I proceeded to farm a bunch of berries to keep them fed with Trike Wazowski, who was still alive, I'll have you know. And immediately after that, the UD finished taming. It was pretty mid all around, but that's fine because it doesn't need to be great. So I put it in a cryopod and picked up the trap and then returned back to base. And I then gave the UD another sus name. Once again, just don't question it. After that, me and Justify teamed up once again and farmed a bunch more flint and stone, which I then turned into spark powder. And there's still a little bit of charcoal in the industrial forge, so I added that into the mortar and pestles for more gunpowder. And something that will definitely help when we're exploring caves or doing anything dangerous in general is medical brews. We could make some in cooking pots, but that's super slow and inefficient. So I decided to take one for the team and try and make us an industrial cooker. And we really only need organic polymer for it. And obviously, I don't want to craft all the hard polymer because that'll drain our obsidian and cementing base stocks. So I decided that I'm gonna massacre penguins in the snow for their organic polymer. And I crafted up 5 clubs since they are the most efficient at extracting organic polymer from their dead bodies. And I took off towards snow on the back of a PT, but I quickly got distracted by a red drop. I did get fear ward by a UD, so that was annoying, but I did get 68 hard polymer out of the drop, so that's always a plus. Anyway, I continued out towards the snow, and just kidding, I got distracted by a purple drop with a ring. And it actually had a really decent long neck and ghillie chest piece in it. I really don't mind if I do with that. Anyway, I finally made my way out to where the penguin spawns, and I killed and harvested a few just before the end of the day. And as for an update on Justify, he was still working to raise and imprint all the baby Theries. It's a lot of work to raise all those tickle chickens. I was still farming organic polymer, however, but I was slowly freezing to death, so I crafted up a sleeping bag just so I could hit the respawn button and be right back where I was. But more importantly, I was killing the adult penguins, and I then noticed there was a yellow baby penguin all alone. So I claimed him and named him Golden Nugget because he was golden. But by this time, Justify had mentioned to me that I should also farm the organic polymer that we need for a chemistry bench as well, because we really do need one of those, and I'm already out here, so I might as well. But the problem with that is I was already running low on weight, so I wouldn't be able to carry Golden Nugget home with me. The little dude would just have to survive out here until I come back for him, and honestly, I have no idea when that'll be. Anyway, I spent the next few minutes farming the last bits of polymer that I needed, and by the end, I think I farmed just over 550 polymer between the hard and organic polymer. But my PT was barely able to make the flight home. It was ridiculously slow. So I jumped off 2 separate mountains on the way to use the help of parachutes to make it home, and I landed perfectly in our base, so it all worked out. And I immediately crafted the industrial cooker as soon as I got back, and I placed it down literally right next to our second smithy. That's right, we have 2. Justify had crafted and placed another one earlier on in the day. If you remember that Theory saddle blueprint that we got earlier, it requires a lot of resources. So we decided to have one smithy with only the stuff required to craft the saddles in. But anyway, you might be thinking about that chemistry bench that I also farmed the polymer for. Well, we still need a bunch more pearls to craft the electronics that we need to actually make the chemistry bench. And that's what Justify had been doing this whole time. He's been swimming around the bottom of the ocean doing his best to survive and farm pearls. But it was pretty slow and difficult. But I decided that's a him problem, so I just farmed medical brews since I just slaved away getting this industrial cooker. But towards the very end of the day, I did set out to search for beaver dams as I have a small chance to spawn some pearls inside of them. And anything will help us at this point. Oh, and Justify also ended up freezing to death at the very end of the day, but he was able to respawn at our raft and simply fly back to his body. The first 2/3 of day 39 I spent flying all over the island looting beaver dams. In total, I only got a whopping 92 pearls, but that's another 30 electronics that I can add to the cause. But that turned out to be enough as Justify had gotten the rest of the pearls that we needed. So when I returned back to base, I crafted the last few electronics that we needed and deposited all the cementing paste that I also gathered. And after a short pee break, I finally crafted the chemistry bench. And I placed it in a corner, and it wasn't very symmetrical, but it doesn't matter. The medical brew and gunpowder grind is going to be much easier now. And we quickly put that theory to the test and crafted some gunpowder, which we quickly turned into shotgun bullets. And I also threw Bat Eater 3000 into a cryopod because it's time for another cave, baby. The last artifact that we need for the Megapithecus is the artifact of the pack. So me and Justify both kitted up and headed out to the cave before the end of the day. And yes, we only have one PT once again since I lost mine in the underwater cave. We were about halfway out towards the cave in the very early morning of day 40 when we had to take a stop for the PT to regain some stamina. And the Trudon decided that I needed to take a nap, and he quickly put me to sleep. But once I woke back up, however, we finished the journey to the cave and ran straight in. And we ran through the first big open part of the cave where nothing spawns, and threw out our berries after the point where it gets very small. And our berries were actually destroying everything in this cave. We were making it through in record time. That is until we got into the last room before the artifact. There were a ton of creatures, and I even got flung off a cliff. But we managed to clutch up and kill everything. But that means it's now time for me to grapple in and steal the artifact. There are usually a few dinos in the tunnel with the artifact, so I'm gonna have to be quick. Honestly, that went pretty well. I can't really complain about anything. That's probably because we were more properly prepared for this cave, but who cares? Anyway, as we were making our way out of the cave, we decided to use grapples to avoid an area of creatures that we didn't kill. But Justify somehow messed up and wasn't able to get up a simple cliff with the 3 grappling hooks that I gave him. And I only had 1 left. But luckily, I'm one of the best Ark players of all time, and I was able to grapple his body and reel him up to me. Anyway, we left the cave and then slowly flew home because we were pretty heavy. And once there, we put the last artifact that we needed for the Megapithecus on display. And I then farmed a bunch of wood with one of our theories for even more charcoal for more bullets. Now that we have all the artifacts that we need, we've decided to put the full focus on our theories, that being their saddles and levels. The saddles each require over 600 metal just for one, so we're gonna need a lot of stuff. So me and Justify decided to start off day 41 with a good old-fashioned metal run. After depositing the metal in our industrial forge, we split up to do separate tasks. Justify decided to get a head start on farming the hide that we needed for the saddles. We're gonna need a ridiculous amount of hide. Each saddle costs over 3,500 hide if I remember correctly. So he spent the rest of the day running around the island killing literally everything he could get on the back of the theory. But I decided I would be the one to power level our theories. We don't have any Rexes, which is what I normally use to power level my boss dinos, but killing other baby theories should do just fine. But before that, I needed to tame an Oviraptor that'll passively collect the fertilized eggs that I'll use to power level our theories. So I spent 10 minutes flying around trying to find one, but I had no luck. That is until Justify said he saw one literally a stone's throw away from our base, so I flew back there. And I then picked it up and dropped it in our base, where I knocked it out and tamed it with a singular baryonyx egg just before the end of the day. I arranged some theories in a circle around the Oviraptor in the morning of day 42, so it'll be able to pick up all their fertilized eggs. And I decided I would hatch the theories inside our base, so I would have to walk one of our fully grown boss theories into the base. So I had to destroy Karen's throne as it was in the way. But now I'm pretty much ready to start the power leveling session. I've got the eggs being produced and I got a nice area to do it. But I'm missing one thing, and longtime viewers will know what I'm talking about. And of course, I gave the Lystro the classic name of Cody. But after that, it was off to the races. The Lystro was giving the boss theories an experience buff as they were killing the babies for levels. And I spent the rest of the day just doing that since I'm gonna have to power level 19 of these killing machines. And Justify had spent the entire day farming hide again. He eventually moved over to the Carno Island because he had killed everything in the northeastern part of the mainland. And he returned home just before the end of the day and deposited all the hide that he had gathered. Now, it was a lot of hide, don't get me wrong, but it still wasn't near the amount that we would need for the saddles. Not much to say about day 43. I didn't do much besides power leveling the Theries, except for when I had to fly out to Carno Island just to give Justify a Theory saddle because he brought one that didn't have one. Major Bob move if you ask me. Anyway, I probably had power leveled just over half of the Theries by the end of the day. But once Justify had actually gotten his Theory saddled up that I gave him, he spent the entirety of the day farming hide on Carno Island. If you haven't got the memo by now, we need a lot of hide for these Theory saddles. Okay, day 44 was literally a copy and paste to day 43, but without me having to go give Justify a saddle part. I guess I underestimated how long it would take to power level all these Theories. I mean, I guess I was using about 20 eggs per Theory since they don't give much experience as Rexes, but whatever. Oh, and Justify also spent the whole day farming hide. And he did come back to deposit it all at some point, but he went right back out again after that to keep farming. We were both doing pretty boring mundane tasks, but they had to be done. I don't know, we probably should have upped our rates or something. Day 45, please be different. I did finish power leveling all the Theories, however. Thank God, that was literally an hour and a half of pure boredom. Anyway, they're all gonna need a little while to heal, so just before the end of the day, I decided to set out to the redwoods on the back of my PT to try and farm some honey for veggie cakes. But I wasn't able to find a singular beehive before the end of the day. This has to be rigged. But anyway, you'll never guess what Justify did all day. He farmed hide, deposited the hide, and then farmed more hide for the rest of the day. The poor dude must have been going insane. And he did also pull the same move back on day 43 where he threw out a Theory that didn't have a saddle and he had to fly back and get one. Dude's really bobbing out lately. I finally found some beehives to loot on day 46, but I didn't find that much, to be honest. I only looted 6 for a total of 30 honey before the end of the day. This was mostly because I wasn't having very much luck actually finding the beehives and that it was actual hell once I did loot them. I had too many near-death experiences, so that's why I decided to pack it in after only 6. The little bees that come out and attack you are super hard to kill since they're so small and there's so many of them. And they also dismount you from your tame, so I was basically getting rage farmed every time I opened one of these hives. I'm surprised I didn't punch my monitor. Anyway, I returned back to the base before the end of the day, and I repaired all my flak armor because I had gotten absolutely shredded by the bees. I can't understate how badly I hate those things. And just as I got done repairing the armor, Justify had returned for another full day of farming hide. And there was also this random rogue Diplo that was trying to push away all of our dinos, but it was swiftly taken down by Justify, who was on a Theory. Day 47, and I was still taking action towards making veggie cakes. You need 4 sap for 1 veggie cake, and we had a little bit as you can get some out of drops, but we're gonna need a lot more. So I crafted up 4 tree sap taps in our smithy, and we had also gotten a metal tree platform that we had just lying around from a drop. So after getting all the structures, I flew out towards the redwoods on a PT, and I first placed down the platform and then the 4 sap taps on the first big redwood tree I saw. These things should produce us all the sap that we need for the rest of this 100 days, but I can always make more taps if we need it. After that, I returned back to base, and me and Justify decided to do another metal run. Once again, we're gonna need a ton of metal for these Mastercraft Theory saddles, and it's gonna take a while for this metal to smelt, so best to do it now. Anyway, I mounted the RG while Justify was on the Enki, and we set back out towards the metal mountain and depleted it of all its natural resources once again. And later on back at base, I finally decided to join Justify in the grind for farming huge amounts of hide. I had decided to farm hide in the snow so I could try and look for a good Megatherium at the same time. And I did craft myself some fur before heading down to the snow with a Theory and a Cryopod. And I spent the rest of the day farming hide. And this is pretty weird, but I think Justify decided to try and farm hide in the artifact of the Hunter Cave, because he flew all the way out to the cave and just before the end of the day had a Theory with him. I don't know, maybe I was trying some new way to mass farm hide. We need any help we can get right now. Hide. Hide. Hide, 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 hide. All I know is hide. And all hide knows is me. Am I hide? Is hide me? What is the meaning of hide? I spent literally the whole day farming hide in the snow, and for all my efforts, I only farmed 1 saddle worth of hide. This has to be some kind of joke. This actually really sucks, I can't lie. I really hope Justify did something more interesting today, or I might as well title this video Hide Farming Simulator. So in the morning, Justify was in the Hunter Cave as I said late on day 47, and from watching some of his footage, I think he was trying to farm tributes as well as hide, as he killed a few Sargos and Titanoboas for their tributes, and he just kind of flew around for the rest of the day. I'm pretty sure he was scouting the rivers for a Spino tank him, but he didn't find anything. And we decided to do a dino wipe before the end of the day to hopefully fix some spawns that were broken and maybe actually spawn us in a good Megatherium or a Spino, but that's probably too much to ask for knowing Ark. We're both back at base on the morning of day 49, and as you've probably seen, we've both been grinding for some time, and that probably gets pretty boring to watch, and it sure is getting pretty boring to play. So me and Justify decided to load up once again and venture into another cave. We only need one more artifact for the Broodmother boss fight, and that's in the lava cave. So after both of us did a little bit of preparing, we loaded up and Justify picked me up on his PT and we began flying out towards the cave. But we made 2 pit stops along the journey on the banks of a river, and we took down 2 Spinos for their sails. And they were also bad levels, so hopefully this will allow some better levels to spawn. But after that little distraction, we finally made it out towards the cave, and we ran straight in and deployed our berries. And the actual journey inside the cave wasn't too bad. Our Baryonyx was once again obliterating literally everything in the cave, just like the time we went into the pack cave. And I also got this crazy ascendant Enki saddle from a cave drop, and I snagged the artifact after that, and we made our grand escape. And we made it back outside a few minutes before the end of the day, so we decided to start on the flight back home, but I weirdly got teleported back after like 30 seconds of Justify flying with me in his PT talons. So he ended up just coming back, and we just camped out right outside the cave for the rest of the day since we were about to take the server down for the night. Day 50, we were back and ready for action. Well, I mean, Justify was. I decided to give him my stuff and hit the respawn button to fast travel back home. There was no need for me to actually fly home with him. This is another benefit of playing with a friend. Anyway, I was back at base and I had to wait for my items to be delivered back to me since Justify was flying halfway across the map. But I got impatient and decided to take an RG out to the redwoods where I set up those tree sap taps a few days ago. And to my actual shock, they only produced 2 sap each in the time that I had set them up. Maybe I'll have to make some more taps after all. So I flew back home with enough sap to make a whopping 2 veggie cakes, which I crafted immediately and put into the fridge so they wouldn't spoil. And Justify had returned by this time and I got all my items back. But he did steal my food without knowing, so I had to cook up some more in the industrial grill, but it wasn't a problem. And now that our little cave adventure is over, it's time to get back on the hide grind to craft these saddles. But the good thing about us crafting these saddles now is that we can reuse them for the dragon fight. That is, as long as we don't fail the Megapithecus fight, but we really shouldn't. Anyway, Justify was already back at it farming more hide on Carno Island when he spotted an Alpha Rex that we need to kill for its tooth so we can do the Alpha Overseer. So he called me over and I brought a Theory as well. And we performed a special ops mission and absolutely obliterated the Rex. Okay, maybe obliterated is a bit of an exaggeration. It actually took us a decent amount of time to kill because our Theories really weren't doing that much damage. It's pretty clear now that our damage stat on these Theories wasn't good at all, and we'd probably have to breed for mutations to get a better stat for the dragon fight. I flew back over to the mainland on day 51 to continue farming hide as well, and that was pretty much the story of the whole day. Matter of fact, it was the story of both of our days. I followed the northeastern river down and took a turn farming hide along the northern Redwoods River, and Justify continued to farm hide on Carno Island for a little while longer before moving over towards the mainland before the end of the day. And I did also loot our tree sap taps before heading back to base as well. And they were producing much more sap now, so I guess I just had to get going. And I actually put that sap to use because I took all the honey and I also got a bunch more veggie cakes. And we've never had a problem with crops since Justified set them up so early in the playthrough. Day 52, and I realized that we needed 10 Megalania toxin for the Megapithecus tributes. And I really hate farming the toxin, but I have to do it. I mean, I probably could have asked Justified to do it, but he spent the entirety of the day first farming Thylaclaws that we needed, and then Spinosails, and then hide. The poor dude was definitely going insane. Anyway, I decided I would first look for a Megalania in the Carno Cave. I only need to find one since I'm just gonna trank it out over and over again since they wake up with more toxin. But as soon as I was flying over to the Carno Island, there was a red drop patiently waiting for me, and it had a ramshackle pump shotgun in it. It wasn't very good, but it was better than primitive, and you guys already know that I love these things. Anyway, I continued into the cave and threw up my Theory to escort me down where the Megalanias have a chance to spawn. And Theory made light work of all the cave creatures, and I even opened up a cave drop, but all it had was a dire bear and Hyenodon saddle. But when I finally arrived at the bottom, there were no Megalanias to be seen. So that was a big disappointment and a waste of time. Anyway, I put the Theory back into a cryopod and grappled out of the cave. I returned back to base and deposited all the items, and then crafted 4 storage boxes and placed them next to the smithy with all the Theory saddle blueprint resources. We were finally nearing the amount of hide that we needed to craft all 19 saddles. But the one resource we had basically none of was wood, and we needed about 1500 per saddle if I remember correctly. So we needed a lot of extra storage for these saddles. But after getting all the boxes set up, I spent the rest of the day farming wood by hand since I had a really good ascendant hatchet. Day 53 was pretty slow again, I have to admit. I spent the first half of the day farming wood. We needed a lot, as you can tell. But something amazing happened today as well. Justify finally finished farming all the hide that we needed for the saddles and returned back to base. So after I farmed some fiber quickly with a Theory, we spent the rest of the day actually crafting the saddles. It took so long because we can only fit about 2 saddles worth of materials in the smithy or RG at a time. So we had to keep transferring resources to be able to craft them. And Justified also eaten a mind wipe tonic as we had gotten some from a drop. And that allowed him to put all of his points in the crafting skill, so our saddles had between 70 70 to 90 armor each. They were pretty good, I'm not gonna lie, but the grind for them was still insufferable. The grind and crafting of the saddles carried over into day 54 with quite a big margin. It was very slow transferring all the resources that we needed, and we actually ran out of quite a few resources a few times. Not hide though, thankfully. I'd be happy if I never have to farm hide again in my life. Anyway, we ran out of wood twice, which I had to go farm by hand. And we also ran out of fiber, but that was super easy because I could just do it with a theory and farm hundreds in seconds. But we even ran out of metal. Luckily, we had these elevator platforms just lying around when we randomly get them from drops. And they actually give a ton of metal and hard polymer when you demolish them. So I highly recommend keeping them if you ever get them out of drops. But we had so many and they gave so much metal that it was worth the investment. Anyway, we finally had 19 saddles about 20 minutes into day 54. And I didn't do too much after that as I was still reeling from the grind. But Justify took off before the end of the day towards the swamp to farm more Sarco skins as we needed them for the Megapithecus fight. I took off on day 55, however, on an RG out towards the pack cave. We still needed Megalania toxins, so I decided to try and look for one in the pack cave. But just a tip for you guys, Megalanias don't actually spawn in the pack cave. I have no idea what I was thinking at the time. And I also grabbed the sap from the taps on the way out there, and they each had produced another 20 sap, so they weren't doing bad at all. Anyway, it took me about 5 minutes of being in the pack cave to realize that Megalanias don't spawn there. I think that's pretty stupid though, I can't lie. This looks like prime Megalania spawning real estate. But once I returned back to base, however, I picked up the storage boxes that we used to craft the Theory saddles as they were blocking the industrial cooker. But I didn't do too much besides that. Justify was going to town, however. He farmed some Spinosaurus that we needed and also got this amazing Fur Gauntlet blueprint out of a yellow drop. We'll probably either need that for when we're fighting the Megapithecus or doing the ice cave simply because they're so cold there. We still need Megalania toxins. So after sitting at base for about 5 minutes contemplating my whole existence, I set back out towards the Carno cave to check for another Megalania. And I descended into the cave just like last time, but once again, nothing. So I had to fly back to base empty-handed. Now that might sound like a bad thing, but there was a purple drop at base that I would not have been able to loot if I had found a Megalania. And it just so happened to have a Journeyman Megatherium saddle inside. It's not a blueprint, but it eased the pain of not finding a Megalania. Now maybe if we could actually find a good Megatherium to tame, I'd be able to put this saddle on or something. At this point, the only place where we haven't looked for Megalanias where they actually spawn is the swamp cave. And we do need to retrieve the artifact of the Mune from in there at some point, so it might as well be now. So I started crafting me and Justify some scuba so we'd be able to breathe in the cave. But while I was doing this, Justify decided to check the lava cave one last time.
By the way, I found a Megalania
Actually?
in the lava cave. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just sit here and wait on you.
Yeah.
So Justify had found a Megalania, luckily. We'll still have to go into the swamp cave at some point, but we can just save the scuba for later. Anyway, I decided to bring the good long neck rifle that I got some time ago to track the Megalania out. It was a low level, luckily, so it wouldn't have to lose that much torpor each time. But that also means it doesn't have a lot of health. So that's why I decided to go the trank dart route rather than arrows. And I set out towards the cave on an RG before the end of the day. And Justify was just chilling in the cave since he didn't want to risk the chance of it despawning. I finally made it out to the cave on day 57, and I once again used my baryonyx to traverse inside of it. But once I actually saw where the Megalania was, I got kind of nervous. When you shoot Megalanias, they kind of just drop from wherever they are. So I really don't want that thing to drop straight into lava because we spent way too long actually looking for one of these things. So I returned to the surface and farmed a bunch of thatch structures in hopes that I would be able to build a platform below it. I returned back down into the cave a few minutes later and constructed the platform. And luckily, it all went to plan and the platform worked.
Nice.
Ooh. And the rest of the day went about how you'd expect. Me and Justify both decided to relax inside the cave and re-knock out the Megalania whenever it woke up. And we got all 10 toxin that we needed by the end of the day. And the poor Megalania had been through a lot, so I decided to let it live. Just kidding, I killed it before we left. And Justify had to Uber me home as he was carrying me with a PT. Day 58, and we now have all the tributes and artifacts that we need to start the Alpha Megapithecus boss fight. And we also did stop to kill some allos on the way back to base for their brains, but it's not that important. Anyway, I then saddled up all of our boss theories with the good saddles, and they were all mostly healed, but there were a few who were still missing a few thousand HP, but I'm pretty sure I just gave them some of the veggie cakes. And as I was doing that, a blue drop started to come down right next to our base, and since we're playing on a server, we can start all the boss fights at supply drops. So Justify moved our theories to surround the drop, while I got the tributes and made the last few preparations for the boss fight. But after that, it's time to kill this alpha monkey. I was on the UD and Justify was on one of our strongest theories. We should mop the floor with this giant ape.
Alright. We have 20 minutes.
Honestly, he's not dying that fast.
fairies are not doing that very damage. But on the Bryce, oh yeah, he definitely was.
These fairies are not gonna be.
I'm trying to like,
I don't know if I can get out. I think I'm just gonna use the wall. Oh, I died.
Yeah, so that definitely didn't go how I wanted it to. I got cornered by the monkey and I wasn't able to move. But as long as Justify wins the fight and gets his head, we should be fine. Luckily, Justify managed to clutch up and win the fight, and we lost 3 fairies along with the Yudi, but he did manage to get my stuff back, which was nice. But this also proves that we really do need to upgrade our melee stat on our fairies, and Justify mounted the trophy we got just before the end of the day. This is what happens when you kill me in Ark. We put your head on a trophy wall mount. Now that we have finally completed one of the bosses, we can take our focus off the boss grind and do some other stuff. And that started with me and Justify finally hatching some PTs in the morning of day 59. And there's only one that was worth keeping, which I imprinted, and I named it Junkrat. And I then spent the rest of the day kind of just sitting with Junkrat. I really wanted to get an imprinted stats on a bird, but our imprinting settings were wrong, and I actually wasn't able to get an imprint on Junkrat before it finished raising. But I did power level the bird by killing a ton of fairies, and the level payout was crazy in itself. And Justify spent the whole day searching for a good Megatherium, but I think you all know by now he didn't find one. I'm not really trying to be a downer here, but this is probably my worst run on the island ever. We've been having terrible luck and the grind has been super slow. Maybe if you guys show this video some support, me and Justify will give this another shot on another map. Comment down below if you want to see that. Day 60 and we're back at it. Me and Justify decided to dedicate ourselves to find a good Megatherium because we really can't go much longer without one. We only have 40 days left to raise an army, defeat 2 bosses, and then the Alpha Overseer. So we both spent the day scouting the snow on our PTs. And I was making sure to kill every bad level with my shotgun. I told you we were really dedicated to getting one of these guys. But history was looking to be repeating itself. That is until just over halfway into the day.
Oh my god. I just found a 140.
oh, thank you.
This is basically what me and Justify have been praying for like the past 40 days or something. Anyway, I decided to stay with the Megatherium and make sure it was safe while Justify returned to base to get all that we needed to tame it. And I eventually saw Justify flying back over the horizon towards me, and he pretty much had everything that we needed to tame it. So I first constructed the trap. And we got the 140 into the trap pretty easily. But it also had a friend that was a male, who we also tried to get into the same trap, but he was being difficult. So we decided to just focus on the level 140 first. And I knocked it out just about a minute before the end of the day. And I had seen an Ovis earlier in the day when I was originally scouting for a good Megatherium. So I began flying back over towards where I saw it, while Justify stayed with the 140 and attempted to get the level 85 back into the trap. The Ovis seemed to have been lost to time itself. I couldn't find it anywhere. I mean, it probably just died since literally everything likes to eat them, but I was still sad. And I was just about to turn around and fly back to the tame site when I saw something poking out of the ground. It almost looked like a rock.
There's a dead sheep right here.
So I harvested a ton of mud and returned back to the level 140 to start taming it. And it didn't take too much longer for the Megatherium to finish to tame, and it actually came out with pretty decent stats. Anyway, it's now time to tame this level 85, or at least try to. We for some reason weren't able to get into the trap. So I just started shooting it with Trinks while it was running around like a chicken with its head cut off. And we did eventually knock it out, and it tamed super quick with the leftover mutton because it wasn't a great level. Now obviously it's not very good, but we're just gonna simply use it to breed it out the good stats of the other one. Anyway, I was about to head back to base until Justify said he had spotted a level 135 Yudi nearby. And we did need a new one as ours had mysteriously died. But you wanna see something crazy? Watch this clip.
You need to eat. There's a level 135 female Megatherium right there.
What?
Are we serious right now?
Alright, we're taming that. We're taming that first.
Yeah, the game was definitely gatekeeping the high levels from us earlier on. This has to be one of the biggest and fattest middle fingers of all time. Anyway, we now have to tame that and the Yudi because they could have better stats. For some reason, we were also struggling to get this giant sloth into the trap. So we decided to employ the same tactic that we used last time, where I just light it up with arrows while it runs around. But we eventually cornered it and it started a torpor run and got knocked out. But oddly enough, the Yudi that we wanted to tame had somehow ditched his Carno minions and made its way over right next to our tame. Luckily, they don't attack Megatheriums. And Justify ended up getting its attention while I set up a new trap. And we didn't have too much trouble getting into the trap. Now, we've been doing a lot of taming, but what's one more? Somehow Justify had found a high level Daedon, so we might as well tame it as well. So I set up another small trap and he dropped it in with the RG. And it went to sleep pretty easily, but it's gonna take a lot of meat to actually tame this. So I spent the rest of the day searching the snow for another sheep as the mutton had spoiled by now. But I really wasn't having any luck. So Justify was farming prime meat in case I didn't find a sheep. As I said, I wasn't able to find a Novus. So we just decided to feed the Daedon a combination of prime and normal raw meat. And I also decided to return back to base for a little bit to craft some more shotgun bullets, and then I returned to the tame site. And I named the Yuta Yellis. It has no median and I pulled it straight out of my and the Daedon eventually tamed as well. Also, don't worry about the level 135 Megatherium we tamed because it came out with pretty bad stats. Anyway, me and Justify both returned back to base with all of our new tames. It's actually kind of crazy how many high levels we found in that time. Ark definitely was trying to apologize for actually screwing us over in the first 60 days of this playthrough. Anyway, after crafting those Theory saddles like 5 days ago, we've pretty much been out of metal ever since. And now that we're back at base actually doing stuff, we kind of need metal for literally everything. So me and Justify wrapped up day 63 with a metal run. Day 64 was pretty slow, but honestly that's not necessarily a bad thing because we've had a lot of action over the past few days. And I first looted some drops off the back of my PT, and I got another elevator platform, so I returned to the base to demolish it for resources. It still actually blows my mind how much metal and polymer these things actually give you. Anyway, after that I spent the rest of the day in the swamp farming Sarco skins as we need those to summon the Alpha Broodmother. And Justify spent the day starting our Megatherium line as well as organizing some of the Theories. As I said earlier, our Theories don't have the best melee. We need a better melee stat that even have a chance of fighting the dragon. So that's why me and Justify set up this little structure outside our base so we can start breeding it for mutations. And that's pretty much all we did on day 65 besides breed the Megatheriums as well. We really do need those mutations. I decided that I would take the responsibility of raising up the Megatherium army since Justify had done the Theories. So anyway, I spent about the first 2/3 of the day actually raising some Megatheriums. We didn't have a breeding pair with the guaranteed stats just yet, but I was able to get 4 or 5 with the good stats. And one of them was a male, so I would just have to wait to have a breeding pair with the guaranteed stats. But on the other hand, Justify was hard at work working to try and get some mutations on our Theory. And he only got a health mutation by the time he stopped though. And the reason he stopped is because we had decided to get a head start on getting the artifacts that we need for the Alpha Dragon. And we decided to get the artifact of the Skylord first since it was in the easiest cave out of the 4 we needed to get. It's in the small cave in the snow. And after crafting some shotgun bullets, we were off. This time I was the one carrying Justify on my PT. He somehow lost his bird again. But I don't know if I have much room to talk because I've actually lost some birds recently. I think this run might just be cursed, to be honest. He's still alive. Dude, he's been here for like 50 days.
Did you tame him?
Yeah. We made it to the entrance of the cave by the morning of day 67. And this cave isn't hard at all you need is a shotgun and maybe a few grapples. And we have 2 shotguns and quite a few grapples, so we should be chilling. We made our way into the cave and were immediately greeted by a yellow drop. And it had a good pickaxe, which I took, and a Mastercraft harpoon gun, which will soon become Justify's favorite weapon of choice. And then we continued deeper into the cave to get what we actually came here for, the artifact. And we only had to blast a few spiders before I could see the artifact. The problem was that there were some bats that were posing a pretty big threat to us. You see, if you fall into those spikes, you die instantly. So I decided to be grappled against the wall and try and get the artifact as quickly as possible. Hit him. Hit him. And after Justify helped me take both of those bats down, we left the cave with our prize. That was definitely the easiest artifact we've gotten so far. And we looted a red drop on the way back to base, but there wasn't anything noteworthy in it. And once we returned back to base, I spent the rest of the day working with the Megatheriums. I was raising them and leveling the fully grown ones by killing baby Theories that didn't hatch with any mutations. It was pretty efficient if I'm being honest. And Justify was, yeah, I told you he really likes that harpoon launcher. But after he spent way too long putting that poor Diplo down, he set out to look for a Basilow to tame. We need to retrieve the artifact of the Cunning from the Hard Underwater Cave and get some tributes from the underwater like Tuso tentacles. And the Basilow just seems like the obvious choice since they have a ton of health and put out some decent damage. Okay, so day 68 through day 73, literally all I did was raise and level our Megatheriums. So for these days, I'm gonna fully switch over to Justify's POV since he's the only one that really actually did anything. I still remember having to raise and level those guys for like 3 hours straight and it was horrible. But this is some of what Justify went through when he was raising our Theory boss army, so now it's my turn. But after this stint, I would have all of our Megatheriums raised and levels that we would need for the Broodmother boss. And if you're wondering about the Megatherium stats, they would have around 35,000 health and between 450 to 500 melee, so they were definitely good. So we actually decided to not even try and look for a saddle blueprint for these guys since they were so good. Anyway, on to Justify's POV. As I said on the end of day 67, Justify was searching for a Batsy as we really do need one. But with our luck of finding high levels on this server, he wasn't finding any. And he was also searching on his Baryonyx, which is pretty inefficient given how slow it actually is. And they also get attacked by everything in the ocean, so he would have to stop searching and fight for his life multiple times. But this did pay off one time because he did kill an Alpha Megalodon, and that's good news because we need one fin for the Alpha Overseer fight. But towards the end of the day, he gave up and began flying back to base. And I really can't knock him for this because there's no way you'd catch me scouting the oceans for a good Bassie on the back of a Baryonyx. Justify was back at base by the morning of day 69, and I guess that torture of being in the ocean all of day 68 was making him want to stay on dry land, which is respectable. So he spent the whole day working with the Theris to try and get some more melee mutations. And by the end of the day, we still only had 2 melee mutations on our Theris, but that's still an extra 20% added to the melee. And the babies were now hatching with 337% melee, which is a lot better than what we originally first tamed the Theri at. But we still have a little bit of ways to go. Justify spent the first half of day 70 working with the Theris again, but about midway through he returned to the ocean to continue looking for a good Bassie. And he didn't find any good Bassies once again, but there were a ton of low levels. So he ended up killing all those to hopefully make room for a decent Bassie to spawn, and to get the blubber as we do need it for a tribute for the dragon fight. And he actually killed so many that he got all 10 blubber that we needed by the end of the day. Day 71, and once again, nothing. And once again, Justify returned back to base to breed the Therius for a little bit longer to see if he could get any more mutations, but I don't think he got any. So he once again returned back to the ocean before the end of the day. And he for some reason was only scouting the northern part of the map each time. I did eventually tell him that Bassies spawn all over the map except for the east side of it, which can be seen on the spawn map here. But I guess he didn't need that advice because he found a level 130 in the northern part of the map near the icebergs. If you've ever tamed a Bassie in Ark before, you would know that it's probably pretty annoying to actually tame one of these things. Not that it's hard or anything, but the first time you feed them, they take half a century to want the next feed. I mean, after that it's smooth sailing because you can just feed them every 30 seconds or something like that, but the time between the first feed and the second feed is insane. Seriously, I want to meet the developer responsible for this. Anyway, the Bassie did finally want the second feed just before the end of the day, so the taming effectiveness started shooting up. But it all came crashing down on day 73 because a Megalodon came out of nowhere and bit Justify's Baryonyx and the Basileau at the same time to reset the taming effectiveness. So that meant after killing the shark, Justify had to go through that whole process again. He had to feed it, wait half a century for it to want more food again, and then keep feeding it. But he did finally manage to tame it almost 25 minutes into day 73. This passive taming mechanic is honestly pretty broken if you ask me. And Justify only had one cryopod, so he put the Basileau into the cryopod and flew home with the Baryonyx following him in the water. It's actually kind of crazy how we're 3/4 of the way through this challenge and we're still bobbing out. But hey, at least he got the Basileau. And this was also the last day that I spent raising Megatheriums. I never want to do this again. It was actually really horrible, as you can imagine. I'm finally back doing stuff on day 74. Thank God. That was actual torture, having to spend 3 hours raising and leveling those Megatheriums. And with my new freedom of not having to breed those Megatheriums, the first thing I did was make medical brews. Riveting, I know. Anyway, we're actually planning to do the swamp cave finally. The Megatheriums were gonna need a little while to heal, so we might as well be productive. Anyway, we grabbed the scuba that I made a while ago and set out, just to immediately turn back around because Justify had actually forgotten to grab a Megatherium that we were gonna bring into the cave. Anyway, once we were actually ready, we set back out for the swamp cave. Anyway, I didn't bring any armor, and I'm pretty sure Justify didn't either because we'd be wearing scuba the whole time that we were in the cave and it would only weigh us down. But once we eventually made it out to the cave, I got jumped. Oh, are we serious? I can't hit it, bro. Dude, I'm actually gonna die. Oh my god. Yeah, I can't lie, that was probably the most embarrassing death so far. I literally couldn't hit a shot to save my life, literally. Anyway, Justify came in clutch and crafted up a bed for me to respawn at. And anyway, it's now time to make our way through this cave and get the artifact of the immune.
It's so funny how slow they walk with the flippers in this game.
Day 75 began with the flight home from the swamp cave. We had successfully gotten the artifact of the Mume, and I also got this crazy ascendant sword blueprint. I saw a video somewhere that you can hug the dragon's foot and simply melee it to death with a sword and it can't hit you. And I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to try it. But Justify had to be a loser and say no. There's probably about a 90% chance that it would not have worked, but it'd been really funny if it did. Anyway, we made it back to base and placed our new artifact on display. And we both also had contracted swamp fever, but we had antidotes at base, so we immediately cured ourselves. And after that, I crafted all the primitive Megatherium saddles that we needed for our army. And we had all the resources that I needed at base because primitive saddles are so cheap. Our Mastercraft there, Xeno saddle blueprint, can't relate. And I killed a Bronto for meat to feed our day down before the end of the day. The dude had over 50,000 food, so he needed a lot of meat to get that food stat going up. Also, I genuinely have zero clue what Justify did today. He kind of just ran around and then flew around on the RG for a little bit. I don't know, maybe he actually knew what he was doing in his video, but this is my video. But do make sure to go check out his video to see more in depth into his point of view. Day 76 started a little later for me than it did for Justify. I'm pretty sure my game was updating and it would only take a few minutes, so it didn't make any sense to take the server down and wait for the update to finish. And all Justify did during that time and the whole day really was work with the Theres to get some more mutations and feed our data on the prime meat from the baby's dead bodies, as it gives more food than normal meat. Anyway, once I finally got back in, I flew back out to the Carno cave because there was a red drop and it gave me a ton of metal structures, which is just what I wanted. And after that, I returned back to base and repaired all of my gear because I was about to go back out doing something that I absolutely hate. But I made sure to get the sap out of the tree sap taps on the way. If you can't tell what I'm going out to do, I'm going out to get more honey for veggie cakes. I said earlier on in the video how I really hate doing this, but it wasn't that bad this time actually. I got really good at being able to loot the hive, then get on my RG and fly away before the bees could sting me and dismount me. And I still think I only looted about 7 hives before hitting the taps once again and heading back to base. I'm either blind or there just that weren't many hives in the redwoods. And once I got back to base, I realized that we were almost out of stimulants, which is what I need for veggie cakes. So I farmed a bunch of stim berries with Craig Wazowski and made a ton more stimulants in the chemistry bench. And I crafted more veggie cakes before the end of the day. And Justify had a pretty decent day as well. He had returned back to the ocean and found a tamed level 115 Bastilo. So now we had 2 Bastilos and we should be able to actually stroll into the hard underwater cave and take the artifact of the cunning, which is rightfully ours. I repaired my flak armor once again on day 78 because I had taken some damage when I was getting the honey. And it wasn't too much, but it's nice to see that durability bar at full. And after that, I kind of just sat around base for a little bit and checked up on Justify to see what he was doing. He was still working on getting more Theory mutations. And later on, we decided it was time to venture into the hard underwater cave. We both had Bastilo, so we grabbed our scuba and headed out towards the cave. But the Bastilo Justify had just tamed needed some more levels, so we spent the rest of the day killing a ton of stuff in the ocean around the cave. And we even took down an Alpha Megalodon, which you already know gave me some nice levels. Alright, day 79, and my Bastilo now has some decent levels under its belt. And we both felt confident, so we swam into the cave. These Bastilos are way stronger than the Baryonyx that we took into the easy underwater cave, so we had no worries. How naive we were. Basically, as soon as we swam into the cave, we got swarmed.
Holy. Yo, I'm getting boxed. Something just hit for 400.
Yeah, so I'm so hard.
No!
Dude, why is there so much stuff in here?
Oh my god.
This is insane.
Oh, I made it out!
I somehow managed to escape the giant swarm of dinos, and I swam my hardest towards the entrance. And I thought I was going to make it, until I looked back and saw the whole swarm swimming towards me with death in their eyes. And I did end up dying, but I made it close enough to the entrance where I thought I'd be able to get my stuff back. I can't lose all of my gear in the underwater cave again. So I respawned back at base and grabbed more scuba and a Foco chili to make me swim faster. And I then flew back down to the cave with Junkrat and was determined to get my stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's
One sec. I'm
You're
gaming
good.
hard right now, bro. No way I clutch, no way I clutch. Oh, I'm literally him. The eels are right on my butt.
Yep, I clutched up. I did get my stuff back, but we didn't even get near getting the artifact, so we're definitely gonna have to rethink our strategy. So I returned back to base and we both kind of just sat there towards the end of the day. To be fair, it was the end of a recording session and we were both tired and hungry, and we also did just get destroyed in a cave, so cut us a break. We logged in on day 80 and the server had actually glitched out and kept running. After resetting the server back to day 80, we realized that there were a ton of fully grown unclaimed Theories just chilling in our mutation breeding area. So we had to take them down with lethal force as they tried to fight back as they were fully grown. And after we executed all those Therians who definitely shouldn't have existed, we decided to go out and tame some dolphins so we can scout the oceans faster. We still need Tuso tentacles and the artifact of the cunning, so we need water mounts. Anyway, I managed to tame a level 130 by the end of the day, but I more importantly spotted an alpha lead that we needed to kill for its blubber. So I started leading it over towards shallower water towards the end of the day, while Justify was bringing over a berry so we could double team it and kill it quickly. I led the lead to shallower waters and then swam over to the Carno Island to get some food for my Itchy. And Justify met me on the island as well and gave me my baryonyx. And I then threw my Itchy into a cryopod and we dove into the water to take down the alpha whale. And we spotted a level 95 Itchy on the swim over as well, so I started taming that. Justify hadn't found any good ones, so this will be his. Anyway, we finally swam over to the alpha lead and started attacking it. And it actually died insanely fast. That was probably the freest alpha tribute of my life. And I then finished the Itchy tame and threw it into a cryopod along with my berry, and we both flew back to base. We still only have 4 cryopods that Justify crafted a long time ago, so I took it upon myself to get the resources from our base and fly over to a purple drop and craft 5 more cryopods. And our Megatheriums only need maybe another day or 2 and they'll be fully healed. So we just have to kill a little bit more time. Me and Justify both decided to scout the ocean on day 82 to look for new bassies. And we both started at the northeastern part of the map, and he went west and I went south. And it only took me a few minutes swimming to find a level 145.
Oh, 145 Bassie.
And I then swam up to the surface and farmed some Primeat to actually tame the Bassie. But as soon as I swam back down to begin to look for it, I actually spotted another Bassie, and it was level 100. It's obviously not great, but it should be good enough, so I got to work taming the 145 first. Justify was quickly swimming towards me from the other way around the map, but he mentioned to me that there was an Alpha Mosasaur not too far from the Basilow tame site. So I threw out my baryonyx and slowly swam down there. My berry had actually glitched at this time, and it was swimming super slow. And we then spent the next few minutes slowly eating away at the Alpha Mosasaur's health until it died. Luckily, it was a low level, or we definitely wouldn't have been able to kill it. And Justify also made sure to light it up with spear bolts from his harpoon, and also gave us a bunch more Primeat that we need for me to tame the level 145 and for Justify to tame the level 100. The majority of day 83 was spent finishing up the Basilow tames, then flying home. And we didn't do too much after that because our Megatheriums were basically at full health. But I did make one trip out to this tree sap task before the end of the day to get the sap. We have a ton of gunpowder, and you already know that that's going to be turned straight into shotgun bullets. I love these boomsticks. After that, however, I crafted 4 more tree sap taps. Our current taps were producing a decent amount of sap, but 4 would definitely be more efficient. We plan to have a lot of veggie cakes for all of our Theries for the dragon fight, so more sap is always nice. So I flew out to the redwoods and put the taps on the tree next to ours with the platform, and after that I returned back to base. And once there, I gave the last few of our Megatheriums who needed some health veggie cakes. And now we're pretty much ready to summon and fight the Broodmother. I just hope it goes well. I mean, it should with how good our Megatheriums actually are, and the blue drop was coming down right next to our base once again. So Justify started moving the Megatheriums to surround it by the end of the day, while I was getting the artifacts and tributes that we needed from our base. Day 85, and today is the day we fight the Broodmother. But first, let me explain to you the plan for this fight. That's right, we have a plan. The Megatheriums often get stuck on each other and aren't able to hit it if there's too many of them in an area. So to counteract this, Justify is going to lead half of the Megatheriums around the back of the Broodmother while I use the other half to charge head on. So hopefully with this foolproof plan, we should be able to take down the Broodmother, but only time will tell.
Nice. Damn, she hits hard. Ooh, some of them aren't getting hit. They aren't hitting her.
Yeah, the Megatheriums on this game have like some issues, bro.
Ooh, dude, she hits really hard. I need them to get bug buff. You're like not doing a lot of damage at all.
But
So far, I can't lie, this is not going good. How are they? Your Megatheriums are throwing, bro.
they are, dude. I'm whistling to attack over here, and they're still like.
No, dude, I don't think we're beating this.
This is insane.
No.
Yeah, I'm healing, but they're just not hitting the Broodmother. Like they're literally just standing there. That's why. Like, do you see how many of them are just standing there?
There's nothing I can do about it though.
I know. I'm whistling attack as well. They're just.
Get him, bro.
Oh, bro, I need you to buff me so I can one-shot this dude.
Oh no, dude.
Yeah, that didn't go to plan at all. The Megatheriums Justify was leading around the back kept getting distracted and fighting the little spiders. And on top of that, some of the Megatheriums just weren't attacking. They were just standing there taking hits from the Broodmother but doing nothing about it. We literally had the Broodmother covered from around 300 degrees, and I guess there were still too many of them in one area. So we took a fat L on that. And that was literally all of our Megatheriums. So we definitely don't have time to do that all again in the 15 days that we have left. So as sad as it seems, it's looking like it's gonna be another L on the island. But we still have time to maybe take down the dragon. Hopefully we can do that at least, because these last few months of not beating the Alpha Overseer on the island have been starting to become demoralizing. Okay, so it's the day before posting and day 86 through day 89 corrupted. I'm really annoyed by this, but there isn't anything we can do. So a quick summary is that we tried to get into the hard underwater cave multiple more times and we kept failing. But if you're interested in the little details, I'll put the script on screen right now and you could read through it. I mean, I know none of you will probably read it, but let me know if you do in the comments. I'm trying to cope with 4 whole days corrupting right now. So day 90. The server actually rolled back after we shut it down to where me and Justify were swimming into the cave. So we turned around and kept our lives. And we flew home since we knew that plan wasn't gonna work. Now, I'm gonna start moving fast here since we've been at this for a little while and even editing this is giving me flashbacks. We spent the majority of day 90 gearing up again. More scuba, medical brews, the essentials. And the rest of the day was spent taming more dolphins since we just have to outsmart the dinos once and then we get the artifact and we're out. Justify finished up taming a few more dolphins for the first part of day 91. And I kinda just sat around since I've already tamed 2 dolphins. And then we swam back into the cave and I died. But that's not the end. Not again. Justify managed to clutch up. He did it. He actually did it. I have no idea how, but he managed to juke out all the creatures in the cave multiple times and get out with the artifact. And not to mention that his dolphin was basically on life support. Day 92, and sadly, we don't have time to sit around and celebrate. We still have to get one more artifact, which is an arguably harder cave to move through, the Ice Cave. We decided that we would use grapples to move through the cave, and each have a Theory and a Cryopod to fight only when we needed to. So the entirety of day 92 was spent preparing for the cave. We crafted around 180 grapples for both of us to use, and we also made different pieces of fur to keep warm inside the cave, and of course tons of medical brews. I was also carrying a strap just in case I have to get anything's attention and lead it out of the way. There is no way this fabricated pistol will actually be able to kill anything in this cave. Day 93 and we're pretty much ready to go to the cave, so we flew over and started making our way. Just kidding, Justify already died. But he flew right back over and we got back to it, but it wasn't that easy. We had to be super cautious of getting in and out of the cave, so commence Operation Ice Cave. Oh!
Oh, I saw. Did you see that?
Yeah, dude, he's launched fast.
Oh, dude, I hit you with the grapple.
Coming? Okay.
Here he comes.
Oh my god, the whole Congo. Oh, I got stunned. Oh!
You found him.
Oh, he's targeting me. Oh, I got Peluvian!
Oh no!
Oh my god! Alright, now that we have all 4 artifacts that we need to gather the rest of the tributes that we need for the dragon fight. The big ones being Tuso Tentacles and Giga Hearts. So we decided to divide and conquer. I searched the oceans for the whole day while Justify searched for a Giga. And he actually found a Giga on the side of a metal mountain after not too long of looking. So we both returned back to base before the end of the day to get what we needed to kill it. And Justify was working on getting the metal gates to trap it while I was farming hundreds of arrows. I'm gonna kill the Giga with the ascending crossbow that I have since it does so much damage and I basically have infinite ammo as all it needs is stone arrows. So I spent the rest of the day grinding out those arrows. Day 97, it's time to kill a Giga, boys. And it went a little like this.
Yes!
Let's go.
Oh my god.
It took a lot of hard work and dedication, but we were able to take down the Giga. Also, Junkrat died because we left it on a mountain and accidentally left him on passive. It was my fault he died. But we got the Giga Heart that we needed. And after that, Justify dropped me back off the ocean to continue looking for a Tuso to kill. Found a level 20 Tuso on day 98. So I swam behind a rock to throw out the Theory so I can quickly kill it, then put the Theory back into a cryopod before it drowns. But I then pulled this epic move.
Oh, it's right there. No! I just cryo-sicked it. I'm a rock.
Oh no.
No.
Yeah, that was a major Bob move. Anyway, I respawned at base, got another Theory, and then returned to the ocean. And I killed the Tuso and got my stuff back. And I spent the rest of the day searching for another Tuso. And I killed a level 55 just before the end of the day, so we now have all the tentacles that we need. And Justify spent the day getting some other tributes that we needed. And he's also started leveling our boss Theories for the dragons that he raised. Day 99, I'm just gonna skip through quickly because I know what you all want to see. We just spent the day leveling our Theories and spawning in tributes. Yep, you heard me right. We admit defeat. We failed the challenge, but we still want to see how we would fare against the dragon with all the stuff that we have right now. We didn't spawn anything else besides tributes, but we did lose a challenge and we just want to see how we do. And with that being said, let's see if we can reclaim one last bit of pride that me and Justify have.
There's a berry in here.
What?
No,
Oh, no.
that's my bad. Dude, I screwed up bad. Some of these theories don't have saddles.
What?
Yeah.
Get him, Karen.
Oh, no.
No!
No!
No, that is not what's
Oh, wait,
supposed to
it hit me
happen.
though. It hit me though, I think.
It hit a lot of them. But the berry just died in one hit.
Dude. Oh, no way. I
Okay, we're
threw,
good,
bro.
we're good. We're actually done. Alright, I'm healing.
Oh, I got killed by a Dimorph. Oh.
Okay, so this video didn't go to plan at all. The odds were stacked against us from the start, but we gave it our best shot and we had fun. But maybe with me being unable to beat the Alpha Overseer on the island 3 times in a row now, it might be a sign. So I think this is the perfect time to see how I fare in other games. Once again, thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. And download War Thunder today for PC, PlayStation, or Xbox. And now, as you watch me and Justify blow up our base, make sure to check out Justify's video to see more of what he did.